what happens. The camera looks about right.
Yeah.
And Jim's going to move into scene here. So we got that. We got audio. People hearing the audio okay? Hello.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, everybody. We hope you can hear us.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm not getting any response there. That's interesting.
Are we on?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Hi, everybody.
All righty. Douglas says we're good.
All right.
All righty. Okay. Maybe we've got it the first time. Hey, Norberto.
Hey.
Hey, Mr. L.
Hey, Dave.
Oh. Well, first of all, it's rather cold. Right now, it's about 254 Kelvin outside. And which is about -3 Fahrenheit. It's been a fairly cold week, and it's going to be cold.
Yeah, it looks like through Saturday we're going to be cold.
Yeah. I looked yesterday, and the 10-day weather had nothing over freezing. So
no,
it's kind of cold. This week, primarily what I did was ordered in stuff. We've got a furnace coming, and I want to thank Lars there for helping me. He's got one of the furnaces that we were looking at, and so he was able to give us some good feedback on that. So we got one of those furnaces on order, and we've got crucibles and all the stuff that we should need to continue on with the smelting of the resin tests. For those of you who weren't here last week, let's see. This is loaded resin, and it runs theoretically about 11% gold based on the calculations of the concentration of solution in, the concentration of the solution coming out, and the amount of solution that went through it. And this is let's see if I can get that where you can see it. Is it visible? Where is it?
It's there.
There it is. Come on. There we go. There we go. There's a little bead. It's a 0.2 of a gram. Theoretically, about half of it should be gold. And so we got a lot of testing to do to see if we can perfect and confirm the exact process needed to smelt that resin down into gold. And I won't be able to do any of that until this weekend at the earliest, basically. I am doing a test. You should see a video pretty soon on, I was taking one of the crushed samples that we've done for Montana B. That's kind of a standard sample.
Mm-hmm.
And did one bottle roll continuous for the last 24 hours.
Okay.
Just before you got here, I took it off thing.
Right.
The other one, every hour I'd put it on for 5 minutes and then take it off again. So I have an intermittent agitation versus a continuous agitation over the same time period with the same materials.
Okay.
So we'll see what the difference in dissolution is. If it's not very much, like say we got 80%, then especially if you had limited equipment or limited energy or something like that, wouldn't be too bad. On the other hand, if you got 20% here and 100% there, that's like, okay, yeah, you need to do whatever it takes to keep it agitating.
It's the testing.
Hi, Terry. So that's a test. I've actually completed the test. Need to take the samples to the lab tomorrow. I'm also testing a sample for Coulter. It's a placer concentrate, and as we're going to discuss later, in terms of how do you monitor your process to see where your losses may be, one of the problems can be microfine gold in the tailings. In this particular case, we're looking for real fine gold in the concentrates that they're not getting in the secondary concentration. The people who were doing this, as I understand, we're using like a sluice as the primary concentrator, and then running the sluice cons over an RP4 Deister table, and recovering a fairly good amount of gold. But Coulter believes that there's still a good chance that there's an economic amount of gold in the remaining cons. So I'm doing a test on that, and saying we can get into that a little later as to how you can really look for stuff that it's hard to see. That's one of the problems. Hard to recover, hard to see. How do you know that you're losing it?
And you're doing a video on that.
I will be doing a video on that shortly
that will
too.
be out.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing both a hand pan and the assay thing. And the next thing after that, project-wise, is going to be.
Thanks, Eva.
Chris and I are going to be working on the. Well, that's kind of weird lighting there. Let's see how that works.
That's reflecting behind us pretty bad too.
It
It wasn't.
Why don't you
Turn it
try
back
turning
down a
on the
little
one
bit.
over your heads?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's what you want to get that
Oh,
switch there.
That did it. That'll help some. Yeah, there you go.
Let's see.
That there, and we don't get so much reflection.
Get you a little more light. Eek.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it's
good.
a little bit more. Light us up. And so, thank you, Terry. And the next big project is going to be trying to develop a inexpensive, fast field test for gold, a field assay. It's by definition not going to be as precise as a laboratory assay, but if we can get something that costs 10 cents a sample and you can complete it in 30 minutes, that adds a whole lot of capabilities to your arsenal.
Yep. That
is extraordinarily valuable. And part of the test, I mean, I had one years ago that was, I used aqua regia to digest it, and it worked pretty well. Detection limit 1/100th of an ounce per ton, and probably good within about plus or minus 20%.
Yeah.
You know, so it was pretty effective, and yeah, I'll bet you, Lars. And so we're looking to kind of redevelop both that and modify the basic process to the solution also, so we can do a solution assay, in real time. One of the real important things for that is going to be when we're extracting gold out of solution with the resin columns.
Yeah.
When does that resin get loaded? When do you need to change your resin?
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, you can tell it's loaded visually, but you can't tell how loaded it is visually. It just gets dark. I mean, let's see. This one is 2. And this one is 3. And this one has about twice the concentration of this one.
Sure.
But can you tell? Not by looking at it.
No.
So that's it. We need to be able to tell when we need to swap those out.
Yep.
So that's, let's say, another thing we're going to be working on. I've got a fairly high level of confidence we'll have it done before winter is over. Because I've done a very similar thing in the past. So I'm not terribly worried about that. I think we will have it. What are you doing right now? What have you been doing?
Not a lot.
Trying to stay on the road.
Finish some more firewood before the weather got cold here. Beyond that, no, we're good.
Yeah.
Now it's winter, so now let's start working on some plans for next year.
Yeah. I don't think conductivity will do it, Lars, because the gold is not the main chemical that provides the main ions, basically in the solution. Hello, Krugel's Mining Camp.
Yeah, Kenneth.
And so we're, doing a lot of things here this winter. It's kind of nice because it's a lot more relaxed than it was the last month when I was racing the winter.
Yeah, racing to get ahead of the weather.
I've had 2 cataract surgeries in the last 3 weeks here, one on each eye.
Yep.
So it gives me a little time there. And I've still got a hernia surgery sometime this winter I got to get done. So that makes it nice.
Yep.
As you've noticed, I've cleaned up the house a little bit here.
Yeah, that's
got
good.
it a little straightened up.
Give us a little more room here.
So those are the current projects that we're working on. And then another thing that came up is Ray Rusaw, who you may have seen doing the frozen gold. The situation that they've got up there in Greenland, he wanted some input and some ideas on and stuff. So we'd like to kind of deal with that a bit tonight too, and use that as an example.
Yeah, there's a few subjects in there that we want to bring up and talk about,
because basically every time you're trying to create a gold mine, i.e. someplace where you're making money,
economics,
there's certain steps you have to go through, and if you don't do them right, your chances of success go way down. If all you're doing is prospecting for the fun of it, and you don't care how much you get or ever turn a profit, that's a totally different story. We're not in it for the exercise. Okay.
Hey, Patrick.
Thank you.
Speak for yourself. I'm in it because they won't find me a crystal mine.
So, hey, Paul. So we'll go ahead and start up on that right now. If you don't have anything else right quick.
No, we can go into Ray's operation or whatever you want to do.
As I understand it,
let's
their
do
situation. So
let's go there. Hello, Paul.
What we've got is a river and a valley and a delta and a fjord. Okay? There we go. So you got some mountains here.
Keith gets the crayons tonight.
You got your own if you need them. So you got a series of mountains here with a valley in between and a river running through it. Okay? Then it goes out to the ocean here. Now, this is a delta. The end of the mountains goes out to a fairly wide delta. This is a decent sized valley.
Yes.
Okay. So there's plenty of room for this river to meander in that valley and change courses and have different channels. And then out on the delta, of course, you have even more.
Yep.
And in the past, you had glaciers coming through this valley, grinding up the rock and scouring it. So if you know the general area has gold, okay, and that's all you knew at this point, what would you do to look for gold? First of all,
ideally, in a placer situation, you're looking for concentration of the gold. So the best way is going with geophysics, aerial magnetics, ground magnetics, trying to find any kind of metal that is giving you enough resonance that you've maybe got some targeted areas somewhere that would have been an older channel. Mm-hmm. It's concentrated because with the glacier going in and out of here multiple times, probably those could be pockets of concentration, not necessarily an old stream bed per se.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stream is reconcentrating as well, any water flow or movement of material. So you definitely want to try to dial in on where can we find concentration. The only other thing you can do is literally do trenching, and you start to trench, which in this valley on their show, they're in a fairly wide, I mean,
Yeah,
this is big.
This is
This
at least
thing's-
a couple miles.
Yeah,
minimum.
and even in here between the two mountains
That one's
was
at least
half a mile wide.
Yeah.
And you've got exposed bedrock in some places as well. You've actually got some bedrock showing that was scoured.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so looking for the concentration is really it's a Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
So ideally, trying to use some more modern science in his case is going to be a plus.
You can get some aeromagnetics, but it's usually too big a resolution to do
Yeah,
you good.
that's what we've found. You really, ideally, if you've got a target area that you're really, looking at carefully, you're much better to hire in somebody to do ground magnetics, where they can literally walk with a backpack. It's all GPS. They can map they can just go back and forth walking it and literally map a lot. They can give you a lot of information fast within a day or two.
You've got two entirely different situations here.
You do.
This is basically a river valley.
Right.
Okay.
Main channel.
And so it works a lot like any river valley would.
Well, you know what your controls are here and here. When you get out into the delta, you have no idea what your controls are until you can do some serious digging.
Right. So my thought would be, first thing to do is run a line across here, so that you're trying to find any targets, old river channels.
Depth of bedrock changes. If it's deep here and it's shallow over here, you probably want to stick following the deeper bedrock.
And then if you find a magnetic anomaly, let's suppose that you get a signal here about this area, and then a signal here, then you can come in, and to save time and money, do some lines here and try and define.
See if it continues.
Yeah, see if it continues, or if it's just a little pocket or something.
Right, exactly. Identify ore body.
If you're getting stuff here, but not there, that's a pocket. Then you come back over here and do it again. And, this could be an old river channel. And if it is, then you should be able
to start to project that.
And
Paul, yeah, there is some USGS aerial magnetics that you can find, but they're on a big scale. Most of them were overflights. They were doing this kind of testing as far back as the late 1950s. So in some areas, there's actually some fairly good aerial magnetics, at least for a region, like part of the county or maybe a county. But it's still so broad at that point that when you're really trying to target exactly what you're looking for, you really got to scale that down to targeting.
It finds big targets.
Right. It finds big targets that can identify, for instance, where the mineralization possibly was coming from because of the big anomaly. One big hillside in there, the top of this specific mountain was your high metallics. That'll give you the idea of where the mineralization was coming from. Then it's a matter of dialing it down as the specific, mineral you're looking for, whether that's gold or silver or lead, high moly. There's a lot of different things that can give you high resonance in that.
And also, I know, Jaron, that he may not be watching right now, but he can certainly watch the replay. And this kind of worked into some other subjects that we were going to talk about anyhow.
Right.
So it makes a perfect example to kind of work through to illustrate the other points that we were going to bring up anyhow.
Yep.
So this kind of effort is not necessarily very much. I know you said that they've got drones now that can do this too, from
they can
like
do
50 feet
yep,
up or
right,
something.
100 feet or whatever. If you've got brush or something, they can do it low enough level that they can get very consistent mapping. And the same thing, the drones are GPS for their flight pattern, so you get perfect lines and patterns.
Yeah, and that's something we're talking Greenland here.
Yeah, remote.
You can't just drive down the freeway.
No, you don't just end up here. You it's really a trip to get half the adventures getting there.
And so you need something, if at all possible, that's light and portable. Now, that does not mean cheap. And here's one of the things that
no, but like I can get geophysics done on a 20-acre claim.
Mm-hmm.
Just have them go in and do fast and dirty for about $2,200 to $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this year I don't know, that probably went up just like everything else, but they can give me within one day, they can do a walking pattern on 20 acres, a 20-acre mining claim on the side of a mountain or a drainage or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And within one day, I get all that data. There it is. Here's what we learned. They're able to read the data, which is important. It's got to be somebody who does aerial magnetics that can help to read the data. And that's really the important guy in that operation. But if it can give you targets, it can cut down, first of all, on where you're going to dig test holes.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, let's go see what that anomaly is and go find out. And if hopefully that puts you on to the pace of, okay, now we got something to work with.
And I don't know if we mentioned it, but you're not looking for gold with the geomagnetics. You're looking for black sand.
Metals, any kind of metals are going to give you a resonant pattern of, let's say, red.
Yeah. And so when you're looking for these concentrations of heavies,
exactly,
in the subsurface, and it can do that
Yep.
as long as there's enough of the metals or magnetics in there to cause a distortion. But that will very quickly allow you to focus in. And I would be willing to bet you that somewhere there's a geophysical company that has a crew that would be happy to go up there for a very reasonable price. Basically, pay all your expenses.
Well, there's somebody who wants to make a name or get on TV. I
Exactly.
mean, it's, and it is, but, drilling is the same thing. If you can identify your targets, then you go drill those targets or dig those targets.
Yeah.
Just like metal detecting on a small scale, you look for a target and then you zero in on your target. Well, this is quite a bit bigger scale than just being out metal detecting. This is trying to take it to a, commercially viable. If you're going to, like in Ray's case now, they brought in excavators and they got a whole mining camp of people and tents and equipment. The amount of money that you have to put in to get, in their case, start, you don't want to be there for 2 or 3 seasons still just trying to find something.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be sitting out here in one little hole panning and finding, a 1/4 of an ounce of gold because it's not paying your expenses.
Well,
you got to dial up the level of exploration to a point that we need to make this work and we need to find targets ASAP.
And Paul, the problem with drilling in rural Greenland is getting a drill there.
Yeah.
And then getting it around.
Right. No,
Now,
if you guys get a chance to watch your show, I would definitely suggest it. It's one more learning experience, I guess, so to speak. Frozen gold.
Yeah, you've got to barge everything in or airlift it. And then another problem is the videos I was seeing of that, they got boulders.
Oh yeah, there's big rocks and
Big
heavy, big stuff to move.
And that is tough to drill through. Now,
well,
an excavator
you got the
can
same
trench.
thing here. Is what you see on the surface is gravels and sand and fines, but when you get actually into the more ancient channel in here, now you got. I mean, I've been in some of these drainages that you've got, rock boulders, literally granite boulders that are the size of a small school bus, or a van, or your truck.
Yeah.
I mean, so when you get into the channel you're looking for, the rocks get undesirably big. And that creates a problem. How do
For a
you
drill.
right? Well, and even for digging it necessarily, like we went in on that site this fall and just mini excavator dig down, and you get into about a 2-foot rock. Well, that's about as big as that little excavator wants to play with when you're trying to get it down at 12 feet and get it up and out of a hole.
Yeah, but I would say as a rule, if you're trying to drill, anything
Right.
bigger than cobbles is just not going to
No,
work.
that's part of the problem. And drills, you can churn gold. It doesn't really give you so much a test as it does to validate that there's gold there. You can take the churnings from the drill and say, yeah, we got gold. But it doesn't give you a quantitative test of we've got $100 a yard in this hole. We're digging and being able to bulk sample, whether that's even with a high bank or a small little portable trommel test plant, you can get some actual numbers that tell you, whoa, now we got a number that's real.
Because electrons hate you, Chris. But I think geophysics is beyond well worth it.
In his case, it is because of the amount of money and the lack of what they know. It could fill in a lot of the lack of what you don't know or what you think you know, and it could give you some targets fairly fast as we need to get to that spot because we've got something going on over here.
Yeah. Now, another thing I don't know is how much of this land is available and the particular rules, but I'd be kind of interested in doing some sampling of this channel here, the actual river, basically dredging it or whatever,
right,
to see if it's got good concentrations in the current channel.
And in a situation like they've got where they've had glaciers, reworking this material, you literally could have there's gold in all of it, but it's not concentrated to a level that's, if you're going to mine all this gravels, is it going to pay out? And that's the problem they've got. They're finding some gold from what I could see from his show. But the problem is finding the concentration of level to make it worth the effort and the money that, they're putting into what they're doing.
Yeah, it's very expensive because it's out in the middle of nowhere.
It's remote.
You have a
the end
limited
of the earth.
season.
Very limited season.
So that means you got to spend a lot of time getting there and getting out of there.
I don't know if they had 100 days. Did they?
I think it was something like
that. About 100 days. So that's a pretty short season.
So you got to be very efficient if possible. Find the best gold as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Get on some good gold, and I would say that it would be a good investment to have one person at least continually exploring,
right,
while everyone else is doing their thing.
You have to start somewhere, and you have to put a limit on what that.
It's called Frozen Gold.
Frozen Gold, Ray Russo's show.
Yeah.
Or, well, him and a bunch of other people, but
yeah. But yeah, that's my thought, is that once you got someplace where you're actually digging,
if you've
got an extra person, send him out there doing some soil sampling and this and that, especially if you got other anomalies out there.
Yeah.
You might be able to take a little mini excavator. And again, some of this has to do with regulations, which I'm not familiar with.
I don't know what kind of regs they
Ray
have
said
up there.
that they couldn't get across the river because they had to get permits to basically trench this a little bit, throw a culvert in there and bridge the river. And that took permissions.
Right.
Well,
that's a time frame issue.
Yeah. On the other hand, it might have been okay to just find a broad flat spot and build a ford, because
if
an
they
excavator can ford a pretty, it can go
deep
through
water.
2-3 feet of water.
Oh yeah.
But anyhow,
definitely. I mean, that's one of the problems I made on my last mining adventure, is not having another project ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've got this lag actually of 1.5 years in here because we had some problems permitting another piece that we were kind of undecided on. Yeah. So now basically I've lost 2 seasons in between getting something else permitted and in the pipeline, so to speak.
But now these principles apply to just any property. Theirs is a rather extreme situation.
Extreme place.
But if you've got a 20-acre claim, the first thing you got to do is try and figure out where the gold is, where the concentration is.
Yep. Build your map. You're starting with a blank sheet of paper, and you need to build that map to figure out, is it worth, let's just say, is it worth putting $1 million into?
I think the meters have a good, at least differential GPS. They'll plot their points.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They can plot everything right from a backpack or from all the drones now. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can lay out their grid and run a pretty darn tight grid.
That could be, Paul. I'm not sure. But say you got to find out where the gold is and if there is gold.
Right.
Whatever the local permitting situation is, which varies enormously.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, depending on what country, or and even in this country, state to state varies, as well as possibly certain counties.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys on Gold Rush a couple of years ago had some real problems down in Colorado.
I believe it.
Well, they were mining right next to town, and it didn't go good. Unfortunately.
That could Hi, Thalia.
Even though they were permitted and everything else, suddenly they wanted to take their permits,
I know mine in Southern California, Indian Pass.
Yeah.
That was Glamis Gold. They had their final permits. They had everything done. There was an election and the county rescinded the permits. Big lawsuit.
Oh, I'm sure.
Basically, Glamis said, well, okay, we got a solution. You just give us all the profits we would have made from that mine, and we'll walk away from it.
We won't mine it. Yeah.
I don't know whatever happened out of there, but yeah, I would agree. For actual serious mining, forget California. But say the time you spend in exploration is frustrating.
Definitely.
But it's so important.
Well, it's very important because it's too easy to even do what Ray and those guys are doing, putting heavy equipment on the ground and not knowing if they can even find anything. And it's a big, big poker game. And that kind of brings up another situation that Keith and I were talking about earlier is, okay, now you found gold, you have a test hole, and the test hole says, it's,
well, you need more than one test hole.
Well, definitely. No, you want to do enough test holes that you can grid out a pattern that, let's just say if you're capable of mining 3 acres in a season, you want to have testing that maybe goes for 5 acres to know that once we start, we at least can possibly extend a little bit. If we've got some season left or whatever, we can keep going. And that kind of starts you out for the following season.
Right.
We still have some ground to finish while we're doing test work up ahead of us. So ideally, you want to isolate enough ground that you've got a season, and then you can build from there. You can keep building up the drainage.
Well, how close do the test holes have to be to each other?
Ideally, I always like to go, my first initial attack will be do test holes about 300 yards apart or something. And
300 yards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to identify, we got gold, do we have gold, do we have gold? And then as you have maybe not a lot of gold, then start tightening up the pattern to see if the gold swings over here and then it swings back across. Because what you want to mine is only the economics. You want to have a cutoff grade that you start, when you get close to those perimeters of that cutoff grade, you know it and you stop at that point. And maybe you retest just to re-verify, because you don't want to leave something that's right in front of you. But you definitely want to dial your perimeters in to where you're economic. Everything you're running is economic. So you can take some low grade against some high grade if it's all still economic together.
Well, how tight did it make your pattern? Because we got.
Well, I would get down to basically every 100-foot intervals on a grid pattern, 100 feet and 100, 100 to the right, 100 to the left, and 100 ahead. And get it down to where you really start to understand, because if this pattern starts to go somewhere else, you want to know where that pattern is. You don't want to mine all of this if you can chase the main pattern and figure out where your economic cutoff is. Otherwise, if you're going to panel mine it, you're going to do really good, and then all of a sudden it's going to fall off. And that's when tempers flare, guys don't get along, you're burning up equipment, time, effort, fuel, and it starts to get really, really ugly.
Well, I say 300 yards seems like a big distance to me. I'm used to hard rock.
Well, if you got 20 acres of ground on it, just a normal claim, there's quite a bit of distance there to at least start getting a few test holes, which is the beginning of your mapping. And if everything says there's gold there, maybe some of it's not even economic, but there's gold. That hole had gold.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can start to dial in this part of, where's the economics start and stop?
Mm-hmm.
And if there's question marks on your test holes, then you go and put a test hole in between two spots. If this is good and this is good, but there's a whole area in here that's bad, why? Maybe you need a couple more test holes to determine that there's another little deviation somewhere, or a pocket. It came up over a sandbar or something and dumped into behind a bunch of old buried logs or boulders or something. And you want to find the economics, but you don't want to be doing stuff that could be an acre of ground and take a month that doesn't even have enough gold in it to justify the diesel.
Yeah, I would have thought more like a 50-foot grid.
Well,
the final.
Well, you can dial it in, but if you're in a big drainage like the guys on Gold Rush that are up there in the Yukon,
yeah,
those drainages are actually fairly consistent across them, short of you've got high grade channels.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's what they're looking for, is a high grade channel. But in a lot of cases, that whole damn drainage is economic as long as you can figure out the cutoff zone for your overburden. Because your overburden cutoff zone, if you get that wrong, your dilution can take you to uneconomic.
Now, a good point here. I'm looking at. What do you mean by, you're saying the high grade and stuff? Some people interpreted that as this is really good stuff and this is not so good stuff. But I think what Jim is trying to say, this is where it makes you money.
Exactly.
You don't want to leave anything on the edges that will still make you money.
Not when you're already mining right there.
Yeah.
If you're already right there with the excavator and the dump trucks or whatever, or whether it's even a little backhoe or whatever, if you're already right there and you've got your stripping edge back, you don't want to leave something that's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now it's $1 a yard to pull it out of there, versus the stripping might cost you $7 a yard over here to continue to strip something.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what he's talking about. It's not like you only go after the very juiciest stuff.
No, you don't want to high grade. And I've seen this where, give me your pencil. I've seen this in a couple of applications already where they went in and did their test holes, and they had a really good area here. And then they found there's a really good area here. And so all they did is run in to mine their test holes. Well, by doing that and that, in some cases, can make the rest of this possibly uneconomic, because you took the two highest grade spots out of the whole damn property. And if you were able to mine the whole system in there and get those two high grade spots as well, the whole thing becomes very economic and would have been worth a lot of money.
Dollar cost averaging is a thing.
Right. It is a dollar cost averaging issue. And if they took the two highest grade areas, let's say that stuff was running $150 a yard, and this other stuff only runs $13 a yard. Mm-hmm. Well, $13 a yard, if you factored in the high grade pockets that you'd hit as you do it, would still keep your cost averaging way up there where the whole thing is economic. If you go in and take out the high grade and everything's $13 a yard, suddenly there's you can mine it, but you're going to make about $2 a yard.
Well,
And it's at that point, it's like it isn't worth all the hassle.
I think that it's very similar in hard rock mining. We
Very
use a little different terms. We have overburden, which is used in both. That means
right.
stuff you have to move to get the good stuff.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And it's one of the subcategories of waste. But if you were mining through here and you had a pocket of bad material right here and it was good all the way around it, you'd still mine that, but you'd throw it off to the side.
Right.
Again, that's a different kind of waste.
It's stripping. Yeah.
If it doesn't pay to process,
Don't process.
but you
it.
need to move it to get it out of your
And-
way, that's waste. Throw it,
Yep.
mine it, and move it, and throw it away.
Yep. Move it out of your way.
Everything else that pays is ore,
Correct.
or in this case, you call it pay gravel, right?
Pay gravel or ore. I mean, it's ore. It's economically viable to run through your wash plant.
And you got high grade and low grade ore, but the ore waste cutoff also depends on how efficient you are. So the more messed up you make this system, the higher that cutoff is going to be.
Right.
My brother was working in a mine one time, and they had a situation where here's the bench that they were working on, and the drills had blasted off an area here, and like this, and this was all waste. Okay, and this was ore back here, and they wanted to get more ore because the whole purpose was to stock a certain amount of ounces per month on the pile. That's because they're playing the stock market. The
Right.
management cares about stock prices.
Right. Stockholders.
And so what they did was they told him, well, move, tunnel through this waste here, get to that ore, and then start shipping ore. Now, he was running a 992C loader with 75-ton haul trucks. So he took about 150-foot width
Cuts.
here, and he's starting to muck this out nice and efficiently, because that's big enough you can run the machine at full speed. And I go, what are you doing? You're moving way too much waste. We want it 50 feet
A little
wide.
doorway.
Yeah. And so here he is. He's got to almost tram the loader in, get a bucket tram all the way back out like this. So they cut his speed in half or less. Instead, he could have gotten through there, started mucking ore efficiently, and kept going. And
yeah, John, that's kind of overburden.
yeah. Let's see. But anyhow, so you need to strive for efficiency, but also profitability. And sometimes the two kind of counterbalance each other.
They do.
And you've got to strike that balance as best you can, because if you complicate this, that's more expensive to move.
Yeah, ideally you want to find a spot where you can start mining and mine, up gradient in one direction straight ahead.
Yeah.
Handle the material the least amount of times.
Preferably.
Preferably once, and maybe once going back on the reclamation.
Well, that's another thing we don't know is what the reclamation rules are.
Yeah,
you
see
basically
for them
just
up there.
mine it and level it, or do you have to replant?
See, I don't know if they get big flooding or tidal storms that wash that clean. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's another thing we have no idea on this particular project, but which is a critical factor. What kind of disturbance can you do?
Yeah, see, and hopefully we'll get Ray on here at some point, or we'll be able to, talk to him some more. I know Keith has been in touch with him, and anything we can do to help him, we will sure do. Or any of you guys, if you want, got questions, get them up here. And if we can help you, we sure will. That was the whole idea of doing this.
Yeah.
But that brings up another subject, which we were talking about, is it's not about yardage, guys. It's not about moving big amounts. It's about recovery. Are you recovering what you're putting through your high banker or your wash plant or whatever? Which that kind of came up in some videos recently that I've been watching of some other guys, and I'm like, if you want to test, if you've got your test holes and it says that every one of these test holes is coming in at $35 a yard on bedrock with your good gold, and you start mining this and you're only coming in at $13 a yard, you need to stop operations and figure out what's happening weekly. You need to know
daily.
Yeah, or daily. It could be daily. If your test hole said that you had a certain amount of value, and all of a sudden, that is not what you're recovering in your sluice box or your wash plant, there's a problem. And you need to stop right there and figure out what's going on. Because to go back later on after you go through here and mine it and find out you only got half of the gold out of this is somewhat insanity, because now the money is spent, the effort has been spent, and it's not worth remining to go back on whatever you didn't get the first time. If you put that stuff through the plant, you want it paying.
Yep.
The material that's going through your wash system should be paying material, nothing else. You don't want low grade crap. You want paying material.
Yeah. And so if you can get 90% recovery, well, let's say let's do that. Say you got $20 a yard. That's pretty good stuff, right?
That's nice ground.
Okay.
Yeah, that's doable ground if you've got enough ground.
At 50% recovery, you got $10.
Yep, and that's a problem. There's your break even. Maybe.
And at 80%, now you're making, what is it, 16?
Yeah.
Okay, which is $6 profit.
Yep.
And this is zero profit.
Yeah, right.
You're doing it for the exercise.
Yeah, you're wearing equipment out.
Now, if you can get this to 95%,
now you're getting into
not
$18, $19.
$19
Yeah,
a ton.
let's say 19.
So the question is, what do you have to do? For example, if you were running your sluices too fast, you're overfeeding your equipment and you're throwing more water.
Yeah, you're surging it.
Okay, and that's killing this. If you slowed it down by 10% to create the appropriate conditions, and now you're getting 80% recovery, well, that made a huge difference in the bottom line.
Definitely. You're still in business here. Here you're going to be out of business
real quick.
Yeah, sooner or later you run out of money.
And so by cutting the throughput down a little bit and improving your efficiency, you do better. This, again, you've now increased your profit margin by 50%.
Yeah, you're jumping huge.
On the other hand, if your efficiency doesn't change that much, if you can double your tonnage and only lose 5% in efficiency,
and on a big enough scale, yardage wise, you can do that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
That's where you got it. That's why the testing and everything becomes so important, and making sure that your sluice runs are adequate, your trommel or wash plant, depending on what you're using, your screening decks, that everything is working the way it's intended to work. Mm-hmm. And it fits the application that you're in, because you go into this at, oh boy, it's $20 a yard, we're going to make $1 million this year, and you start coming out at $10 a yard on the other end of the sluice box, you got a problem that you have to deal with, and you're better off to know in the first week
as soon as possible.
Yeah, that you got this problem, then go for a month or 2 months and realize you've got this problem. After you've spent thousands of dollars in fuel, now you've thrown the material down behind you, and the opportunity of remining that material, it's too expensive to remine it the second time.
Yeah.
You've made it's a fatal mistake that you do not want to make.
Well, and another thing too is, the first thing that I would do as you know, from my hard rock experiences, I'm going to be checking the tailings.
Right.
Okay. Now, in the case of hard rock, that's real easy because the gold's very, very small.
Right.
And I think Ray said that most of this gold was small.
I'm
for
sure
placid.
it is, because it's really hard rock that's been
ground
out.
Yeah.
You know, not that they couldn't get into some really crazy stuff, but
if you've got relatively fine gold, you can literally pan the tailings and effectively spot it if it's there.
See something.
Yeah. And so that's real simple and quick and cheap. Once you got your sluices up and running, put a bucket underneath there, get a bucket full of tailings,
And do that
screen it down,
occasionally.
pan it.
Yep. Pull samples and test and retest. Because especially if you've done adequate testing that says this is pretty good ground,
Mhm.
your recoveries should be running at that test level or better. And that's something I brought up with Keith, is on a lot of our testing, when you're doing a test hole, sometimes you got caving, you're diluting it a little bit, you got a wet hole, you're digging in water with a backhoe, and that's not a good way to get a real accurate, some yardage for testing. But if the testing is adequate, that we're, $30 a yard, let's say, there's a good opportunity to make money even if you make some bad mistakes.
Mhm.
And in most cases, if we had decent material like that in our test holes, when we actually mined it, where we had a dry face, we dealt with the water issues, and everything was operating correctly, in most cases, our test results went way up. In some cases, they went double. They went to, like $60 a yard in some instances that I can think of, where it was way better than what we tested it at.
Mhm.
And then in other areas where our test showed it wasn't a lot of gold, where we double check and try to mine out a better sample to make sure we didn't miss anything. Those samples are pretty accurate. It was, $6 a yard, or it was $2 a yard. It was, and it's like, okay, our cutoff grade area was, we had it about right. Okay? We knew where to stop.
Yeah. And another thing too is when you've got a large plant with longer sluices and more continuous smooth flows and stuff, it's not unusual to actually get better recovery overall than a small test trommel.
And short sluice boxes are where a lot of guys make a huge mistake. They think they're good. Well, we catch all the gold right here in the top 2 feet, so what do we need all that for? Well, no, you catch a lot of gold in the top 2 feet, but believe it or not, when you get out to 16 feet on a sluice box, it becomes, in a season, it becomes fairly surprising how much gold made it down there at 12 feet or 14 feet over time. As you work through your system and little slight changes in material, your feed rate's not always the same. And that gold's going to bed when it gets a chance to bed if everything else is good. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it'll carry in that material a lot farther than you think. Well, even if that's only 20% of your material, you're already doing the digging, you're already running the part with the water and the power and everything to push this stuff through. You definitely want to have it. And that means more cleanup material when you go to clean those sluices up. But you're going to find, hey, Ray's here.
Hi, Ray.
Hey, Ray, we were talking about you. But the length of sluice box makes a huge amount of difference in an operation where you're trying to be economic.
Now, another thing I heard a long time ago, there was one operation, and they would literally take 20 number 8 lead pellets, throw it in the area they were mining that day.
Yep.
And then when they did the cleanup,
see if
they didn't find 20 or at least 19 pellets, they knew that their system, they knew the system wasn't doing its job, and they knew they had to adjust something.
A lot of times I'll walk past the sluice box and throw dimes in it.
Uh-huh.
And when we do the cleanup, those dimes should be in there.
Oh, they better be. That's huge.
Well, yeah, but they're flat enough. They can get in the water stream and go.
Yeah.
But they better be in there, because if they're not, something was wrong. We weren't feeding enough material. We're changing our viscosity of material through the boxes, and that all affects it. If you're not running gravel through the box and it's just water, the velocity of the water speeds up. If it's running in a slurry of gravel and rocks and everything else, that slows your velocity of your water in the box. So that becomes a box angle issue. And you want to try to run your box always as the most consistent you can, the same feed rate ideally. And that's why you see a lot of guys in the bigger operations go to hopper feeders, because the feed rate that's being fed into the plant is very consistent. It's got a limit. The belt speed is this. It's feeding this much material per minute or per second. And it stays consistent. So those boxes are running consistent. Well, and that's a big, big deal.
Yeah, surging is what it's called.
Well,
and that can kill you real quick. And you got small gold, maybe your big thing. In the case of raised situations, small gold is important, but they could take what they called the super sluice there. It was a fairly short sluice and hopper, looked like basically a big high banker.
Right.
But at the tail end of that, if you have a classifier and then run the undersize to another sluice that's configured somewhat separate, it's got a different riffle system.
Going under sluice, there's a lot of things you could do.
And then it's more optimized for the fine gold.
Well, and that's where if you do your testing right, you can identify your particle sizes of gold. And then you optimize your equipment for the majority, the bigger percentage of gold. You could be in an environment where it's let's say it's 90% fine gold. You want to tailor your equipment to that 90% fine gold and then figure out how you deal with some of the larger gold.
That's pretty easy usually.
Usually, you're right. The larger gold usually is the easiest stuff to catch.
Yeah.
So you can put in a crash box where you can pick it up in a nugget trap, or there's things you can do there. One of the situations we were in, it was actually 60 to 70% coarse gold and a lot finer amount of fine gold. Well, then we're kind of tailoring more to 3/4 inch stuff through the plant, through the up to 1 inch through the sluices. Because of the bigger gold was the majority, but we were closer to source. Depending on where you're at in a system, you need to tailor your equipment to that particle size that is the most relevant to that application, that area.
Yeah, and I say one thing you can do that's very effort and energy efficient is an undercurrent sluice. Like you said, you got 3/4 inch.
Yep.
You still got 30% of your gold there.
Yep.
Run it over a 1/4 inch screen.
Yep. Tighten it up.
And then a wider.
Yep. Wider box. Slow down the velocity of your water. Get that material to flow out wider. And most of the new plants sometimes they'll go to just expanded steel. Through the lighter expanded steel, just to get that flow rate to spread out, give that gold a chance to come out of that material.
And I say to me that, and Ray, we've been talking about your particular situation for over half an hour, so you'll want to go back and
critique us.
Review the replay, because we had a lot of stuff we were talking about earlier that we're trying to help you out on too, so you can get some more information.
Yeah, I think it'll pertain to you, Ray, a lot.
Okay.
And if any other things we can do to help you, hey, we're here.
Okay.
Sure, try to answer your questions and help you any way we can.
Could you hand me that? That little envelope there.
Envelope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Now, here's another situation. Coulter Young from Mining Magnets has a situation where some guys have a placer operation. I believe they're running sluices as the primary concentrator. And this is some of the concentrates. And then they take the concentrates and run them over an RP4. which is a good idea.
Yeah, no, it's a
But-
good tool.
He thinks there may still be a fair amount of gold and possibly even platinum in this. There were some platinum mines in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing to test now, as a general rule, placer gold is so coarse, and I'm a hard rock guy.
Right,
100 mesh to me is coarse.
right.
But you can't really assay 100 mesh gold very well with a standard assay. A 15-gram sample is
Yep.
just too small.
Yep.
So he sent me this sample, and I put 500 grams of it in this
Come down.
bottle roll here.
Yeah, come down a little.
Got
There
it?
you go.
Okay.
Yep.
And this has got the Eco Goldex in it, so that, and I'm going to run this for several days to give it plenty of time to dissolve it
Yep.
all.
Yep.
And so now we got a 500-gram assay, essentially. And we'll get a much better idea of what's in these spent concentrates as we could if we tried to
That'll
assay.
probably be that'll be better than any assay
Absolutely.
as far as accuracy goes.
And according to the manufacturer, the Eco Goldex will dissolve platinum group also.
Well, that'll be interesting.
So that's what we're doing for that. But that's another thing that you can do to look for losses. Now, those are the kind of losses you wouldn't have even seen in your initial placer testing either.
No, you wouldn't. When it's tied up with a lot of that magnetics, a lot of times you don't even know it's there.
Yeah. And so it shouldn't be too reactive, Chris, because it's highly oxidized. Can't tell for sure, but you can spend $1 million and still get screwed.
Yeah.
When God wants to jerk your chain,
Yeah, it can go bad real fast
Yeah,
if
it's pretty
things
much-
aren't going the right way.
when the home office wants to screw with you, you're screwed.
Yeah.
I knew a mining engineer who said at one time there was a particular project where they'd gone out there with their drills and they drilled 100-foot by 100-foot grid, north, south, east, west, nice big ore body and everything. They decided, yes, it's economic. They built their mill. They started mining. They were getting 15% of the ore out of the mill. I mean, of the test product out of the mill that they were expecting. So first thing they did was test what's going into the mill. And they'd only had 15% of what they were expecting. Now, they didn't do like we used to do at our mine, because this was a product that was usually in just big, massive formations, whereas gold usually varies a lot. We would analyze each blast hole. Well, so they did that. They started going and sampling each blast holes, and they found out that the valuable mineral was in 15-foot thick beds, vertically bedded, spaced 100 feet apart, and oriented perfectly north-south. So they just happened to set their drill pattern right on it. If they'd have moved it over 20 feet, they would have hit nothing.
They'd have missed it.
Yeah. But that's the sort of thing where you try and do everything reasonable to figure it out. Now, Chris was suggesting a 5 kilogram smelt. And again, nothing wrong with that. If you've got a furnace and a crucible and enough flux and everything to do a 5 kilogram smelt,
That would be it.
wouldn't hurt at all.
Nope.
But you just got to check. Hey, I break for bedrock.
Hello.
That's pretty. I would agree. Adam, that would really suck.
That's the kind of things though that can happen. And
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, if you're thorough in your testing and verify that you're right, then hopefully all the rest of the steps fall into play.
Well, and that's one of the problems too, is that when you assume,
You don't assume. You can't assume.
you've got to check. And like in this case, if they would have said, okay,
Drill
Let's-
one in
let's
between.
punch a hole in the middle
One
here.
hole in between might have said, "What? Uh-oh, something happened."
Well, it depends. Was it in between north south or in between east west?
Well, that's true. Right. You can end up on the ore body one way, and the other way you're going to miss it.
Yeah, but
and the placer can be the same thing. Identifying where the channel, where the higher dollars are, the actual ore body that is your main thing, is you need to somehow, with geophysics or whatever, identify that ore body and then identify possible test holes and start seeing what those results are so that you're building a map. And I mean, some cases that might be spending one whole season, one whole summer just doing test holes.
Well, and this
just one test hole and see what the numbers are for that, and then move on to the next test hole. And until you've got all that geophysical data and real data from those test holes and yardage numbers, it's not worth bringing in, mobilizing equipment and getting ahead of yourself that, oh, let's go mining. We got a good test hole, let's go mining. That's a good way to go broke if you want to go broke fast.
Yeah. And the other thing is, when you're mining, if you have the resources, you have somebody going out there and testing ahead.
Yeah, look for more resource
to either expand.
Yeah.
First thing you do usually is, if you've got a good area, you want to define the limits.
Right.
So you start from there. You keep working out
Yep.
and establish the limits of that. If you have established limits and you step out a little more still in finding, then you might search one of these other targets that you've located.
Correct.
But you need an exploration department, even if it's just one guy with a shovel and a pan.
Yep.
To stay ahead of the mining.
Yep. You want
so that you never run out of ore. Yep. But I mean, that's balancing the whole operation so that you don't wind up in the future going, wow, what do we do now?
Well, and I kind of worked myself into one of those situations.
Well,
where
sooner or later,
I should
they'll
have,
dry up.
I knew I needed to go out and work ahead on the next property or the next thing we were doing. And we got in a situation where that just didn't happen. And we got a lot of snow that fall where we didn't get a fall that we could have been out prospecting. And the next thing you know, the permitting doesn't come through for this property. Well, I should have had 3 or 4 properties in the pipeline instead of just kind of centering on one.
Yeah.
And when that one fell apart, now it's 2 seasons of not mining. And that's not a good place to be, or almost 3 seasons.
Burns up a lot of savings.
Yeah, because we ended up, part of a season we spent doing reclamation on the one property we're on. So we're trying to, put it to bed, be done with it. Let's get on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So it is, once you get over that threshold of beginning and have equipment in that, you'd want to be out there ahead of yourself looking for what is the next possibility.
Yeah.
And maybe that's 2 or 3 different projects, because if there's a problem somewhere, well, maybe that one you can work on for the following year and you can go over there then. But it is kind of, you got to be out ahead. It's a time thing.
Yeah. Right now we're looking at I think the brand name is Tabletop. It's an electric furnace. It's relatively small, basically a 6x6 chamber, front loading. The reason we selected that is it should be capable of doing what we want to do. It's 1500 watts, so it's a 110 volt furnace. Lars has one that he's used for, I think he said 75 cycles or whatever, and it's still doing okay. And it'll reach the temperatures we need. And it's got a controllable, we can control the atmosphere reasonably well. In the case of a gas-fired furnace, you have a lot of gas moving through it at any particular time. Whereas with an electric furnace, you don't have to have any gas moving through it. And so that way you can put an inert environment or whatever if you wish. 1000 C is not enough. You're not going to melt gold. first of all, it says 1000 C. You'll probably be lucky to get 1000 C.
Biggest question.
Yeah, they almost never go to spec. This one is about $600. We got what they call the Burnout Furnace. It has a better than base thermocouple, and it has a vent hole drilled in it so that as you create gases like we're going to do, ashing the resins, they have a place to go, and instead of just coating the inside of the furnace with carbon and such. And that's sometimes that works real well, John.
Yep.
This guy here, he likes the prospecting.
I love the prospecting and the testing part.
Yeah.
I like the mining too. Don't get me wrong, but looking at new ground and trying to read it and then trying to verify, that result, it becomes, to me, that's quite the challenge, to find good ground ahead of you and figure it out and, work on the mapping and that type of thing.
Yeah. Ray, that's it. You want like an absolute minimum of 1100, more like 1200 degrees rated at least. You want to be up over 2000 degrees because you need to get at least 1900. I should have it in about a week or less, and I'll be doing stuff. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have some experience with it, and I can give you all some feedback on it. So we shall see just how well it works. A fire assay is typically done at about 1900 to 2000 degrees. And we want to be able to do a fire assay also. So that's why we wanted those temperatures. We want to be able to melt the charge as we're furnacing the resin. We want to be, significantly above the melting point of gold, so it's not pushing it. And also we want to be able to do a fire assay if we want to. It's a little small for fire assay, but we should be able to put one crucible in at a time and make it work.
No.
Yeah. Say 2000 again. It's kind of marginal there, Ray. Does borax lower the temp required to melt gold? Not to my knowledge.
No, it's really a cleaner and a flux.
Yeah, it's a cleaner more than anything
mainly
else.
It's just a cleaner, Mohammed.
Okay, Chris. Ray, see if you can get the parts or whatever. That's part of it, Roberts. We're going to clay and ceramic crucibles, so it's not going to be nearly as much of a problem as with the carbon ones. It's going to be bigger crucibles, so we can do bigger tests. I got some smaller ones too. I got some 100 mil crucibles and some ones much larger. Let's see. Yeah, and I've also got some cupels, so I can do cupelling in it also. Yes, it absorbs a lot of the impurities, Mohammed. At those temperatures, it's a liquid and it dissolves things. And Chris can tell you anything additional there. I know that soda ash is used to pull out the sulfur, and I believe silica reduces the melting point. Well, I don't know, Goldstream, right now. What are we at here?
I don't know.
Let's
five
see.
Below or so.
Let's see. That's what it says right. Oh, come on, you stupid computer.
It's cold here too, Goldstream. Maybe not as cold as you, but
it's 252.5 degrees Kelvin. That makes it seem a lot warmer. It's -5 Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Yeah. See, you learned something.
Yeah.
You can keep that up there, would you? Keep that up in Canada.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
Oh, sweet. I'm glad it's you, not me. We're going to the particular one we bought also is a little more expensive because you can program a temperature profile. You can program to go up to this temperature and stay there for a while, and then go up to another temperature and stay there. And we will be trying different temperature profiles, different methods, and see what gives us our best recoveries. It's nice. I mean, I've got 200 grams of resin roughly, and it's all loaded the same. And so I can, try different things and weigh the beads and see what works better. Soda lime, is that the same as the soda ash? That was sodium carbonate, Chris. And I say we will try a number of different things. Yeah, and one thing is that by keeping it at just the right temperature and under a flux, we should be able to minimize the vaporization of the gold. Yeah. Well, Goldstream, you're tougher than me.
Yeah, that's cold.
Soda ash. Bone ash is for the cupels. And the bone ash doesn't melt. It stays solid, and it will absorb the metallic oxides. Normally, the lead from a fire assay is you have an oxidizing environment. The molten lead will oxidize, and that lead oxide will soak into the bone ash. And so I say we're going to be trying a number of different things, but we'll just see what we come up with and go from there. Again, hopefully we're going to come up with a system that is pretty easy and straightforward by the time we're done. Mohammed, when the gold is in the resin, it's basically almost an atomic sail. You got one atom here and one atom there and like that. And so as you burn up the resin, as you reduce it to something else, those individual gold atoms are released, and they can in fact vaporize and take off. The crucibles I bought have lids on them.
Okay.
So we can kind of reduce that to some extent.
Well, and then phase your transition. Just, yeah, you bring your heat up.
Any vacancies in Montana? Don't know if we have any right now at the motel here. I think most of the rooms are full, but
I don't know. I mean, over the summer and the fall season, there was people here that I've never seen so many visitors.
How about 112 there?
But
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they've got loaded in here. We're mostly full here, but that's I just fix stuff when they break.
yeah,
I got really lucky. The room right down there, they had a roof leak, and got reported, found out about it. I was able to go up there, locate it when there wasn't snow on the roof.
Yeah, that's good.
Get it fixed, and then the next day the temperatures dropped and the snow fell. Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. What Chris is saying there, the gold itself is not pure gold. It's gold chemically combined with some other stuff, and that is more likely to volatilize. Not sure. I know we got some
Can we answer that on
here. I know we have some Afghan refugees here.
Yeah, they just brought, I think, 15 of them into town.
I don't know if we have them here in Helena, but I know that
we do.
Billings.
No, they brought some to Helena. 15 of them are coming.
They brought
this
some.
month. I know there were some coming.
Yeah, our senators had said they weren't going to allow that.
Yeah, well,
we'll see what happens. I like. Who's the guy in Florida? What's the governor there?
DeSantis.
DeSantis. Yeah, he says we're going to take these illegals that they're busing in here, and we're going to bus them up to Connecticut, where where the president lives. You know, you want them in, fine, in your backyard, not mine. So I say we're going to be doing a lot of research on the furnacing of the resin once I get all the stuff here, which again is probably going to be about the end of the week. Doing the testing on the effect of various agitation on the Eco Gold X right now. I'm going to be testing Coulter's placer gravity concentrates. So there's, let's say, a lot of things we're doing here. And right now I'm trying to find some methyl isobutyl ketone.
You're right, Paul.
I don't know, Chris, if that's true or not. Last I heard, the vast majority have not even been vetted. So we don't know what they are. I would be perfectly happy to take our friends. Absolutely. Coulter Young of Mining Magnets. Okay. With the particular lab we typically use, Hiddle in Colorado, it takes less than a week. If we're doing solution analyses, it'll take 3 or 4 days usually. He usually runs metals once or twice a week. MIBK, methyl isobutyl ketone. You know, and it's an organic chemical that will suck gold chloride out of solution. Nope, not methyl ethyl ketone, methyl isobutyl ketone. Okay, don't know how close they are, but it is a different chemical. And I don't know if the methyl ethyl ketone would work. It's certainly, methyl ethyl ketone is a lot easier to find. I'll give you that. So, I say it's definitely not the same thing. I don't think the MEK will do the same job as the MIBK will. It's not extraordinarily difficult to find. I'm going to have to, it looks like I can buy a gallon for about $100, but I'm not sure how much the shipping is going to be for a flammable liquid.
Everything right now is getting crazy as far as shipping.
I think I can buy 5 gallons for $250 or something. Yeah, I'm not going to try it, Chris. If, you know, we're actually doing something and everything, and then, you know, we might try a side-by-side sometime. That's right, Pat. It turns Eva on. No hydrogen peroxide involved in any of this, Lincoln. If you want to get ready to write,
he's got your email. He's been on here enough.
Well, yeah, but I got Hiddle's address and stuff right here. There we go. You ready to write, Lincoln?
Was it Lincoln or Goldstream?
Goldstream, okay. There's the information, Goldstream. We're at 1 minute and 23 into the thing here, so if you don't get that, you can go ahead and find that again and freeze frame it.
Hiddle.
Yeah. Just phone numbers. Well, there it is. You got it?
Jamestown, Colorado.
Yeah. Say we've double checked him against a couple other labs.
I've used him too. Quite
a few
bit,
samples.
He's done good.
And seemed to be spot on. His company's Fast Fire Assay, and he's done a good job as far as I can tell. And therefore, we just use $45 an assay, including sample prep, which is not the cheapest you can get, but in a week, it's the cheapest you can get.
Yeah. Yeah. He's very efficient.
So anyhow,
Very nice, helpful man too.
if you want multi-element, the lab I use for that is what is it? ALS Global in Reno, but that's going to be like a month return time.
Yeah.
So that's the problem there. I think the guy locally here can probably digest and do some multi-element, but not sure. That's not his general ball. He does a lot of water samples for realtors and transferring homes and things like that.
American Analytical, is that the one in Spokane?
Don't know.
I've used them Goldstream too. American Analytical, I believe they're in Spokane.
Okay.
Washington.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know, but it was interesting to see that you guys ran out of decent food. That's unfortunate that something like weather delayed a barge or something. The poor guys.
That's quite the environment up there, Ray.
Yeah. That's it's challenging when you have to get everything at the end of a long supply line.
We never ran out of decent food.
Yeah. Yeah, he can do like 40 metals or I forget what it was, but he's going to be able to do the platinum group for Coulter's sample too. So I say we got a lot of and he gets it done real quick, and it's only $25 for a gold assay for him.
I've never used Legend, Lincoln. I think I bought some sample bags from them one time, but
I got to be right back here.
I don't know that I've ever used Legend. I knew they were down there in Nevada, but maybe that's why I didn't use them. If they're just a supplier, that could very well be, Chris. I think that's where my last batch of sample bags came from, was Legend, though. Any other questions, guys? Can you get into something? Are you up tonight, Eva?
I will be in a while.
A while? Okay.
Yeah,
7.
I'm running a little late tonight.
All right. So we will have a tinfoil hat report in a little while.
Yeah, we should. I'm trying to get the stupid phone to behave.
CGS. I don't know if I've even heard of CGS, Chris. I'll have to check that out.
No, she doesn't do coffee. Yeah, they have a lot of supplies. I think that's where I got the crucibles and such. And again, Chris has been a great help here. Well, theoretically, Chris, the Rico Gold.
Ray asked about it, testing platinum group metals and how to do it a little bit there.
Ooh, yeah. If you're fire assaying, I think that gets pretty tricky. The Eco Goldex is supposed to dissolve platinum group. So theoretically, this test I'm running for Coulter should also reveal platinum group, but I haven't verified that yet.
Yeah.
And I'm what's that thing? Trust but verify.
Yeah.
And verify.
And verify.
And
again.
verify.
Yeah. And test, retest, and then test it again just to make sure.
And then verify that you weren't screwing with your own mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That you got to watch out for that. The person that's easiest to fool is yourself.
Oh yeah, you can lie to yourself. You're your own worst enemy a lot of times. Yeah, definitely.
I have no idea, John. Oh, by the way, I did mail you the guts of that phone today, and they wouldn't let me send it first class. The scum. It was in a first class envelope, but they said it's too thick. This is a package. So, anyhow, very very annoying.
Some drainages here, Lincoln, can have benches on both sides where, maybe only one side is actually carrying gold, depending on where the initial drainage started out as to where it ended up, as you see it today. You can have kind of layered benches in a drainage. And if one of those benches initially was the gold bearing channel, and slowly gets eroded, you'll always get some carryover of gold to a lower bench and re-sorted in the stream channel. But a lot of times some of your better gold, I know in Alaska was a lot of that case too, where some of the better gold was actually up on a bench above the actual drainage, inside gravels, because that was originally where that gold was laid down. And it's very similar here in Montana. Is a lot of this has been somewhat resorted in the drainages themselves, but if the drainage isn't the original channel, then more than likely the benches are. But you get let's go like this.
Darn it.
And here, this is the actual creek that you're seeing modern day. But you start to look, and in a lot of cases, the original gold was laid down in this channel, and as the creek moved, it'll always carry some gold within it. So some of this could be gold bearing as well. But in a lot of cases, the ancient channel you might be looking for is way up on a bench somewhere. And that's the ones most guys miss because they're down here playing in the water in the creek. Yeah, exactly, Goldstream. A lot of times the gold isn't where everybody wants to go look, down by the water and play in the gravels there. And some of the gold, if you really want to make money, sometimes the gold is in a whole different place. That's true, Paul, depending on what that glacier was dozering ahead of it and where it was putting it. And then you look for concentration, in a moraine situation, which Ray possibly has some moraine type situations up there where they're working, where the glacier advanced and piled up gravels and then retreated. Well, basically those are like dozer piles ahead of a dozer blade, and you back away and leave that pile. Those sometimes can have pretty good concentrations of gold in a moraine situation, but it's a testing thing. You're going to have to test and try every advantage you have to identify. It's all moraine, yeah. So it's all run over, right? Yeah. So that could be kind of like we were talking earlier, where it could all have gold, but not all economic. Yeah. That creates a situation where you really want to do, look at the geophysics if you can, to identify concentrations, because you're going to be better off potholing concentrations in that situation. I've got a neat one that I looked at, and the guy won't let me mine it yet. He said someday, but I was looking at this valley, and you got this mountain peak, and then there's kind of a void in the mountain, and then the mountain continues over here, and The modern day drainage is along one side in here. This is the drainage. But when you look at it, as you're going up the valley and looking at it, you can see that this whole section of mountain at some point was blown out, whether it's a major fault or what, but it's blown out, and the benches are all seriesed into this hillside. And in the old days, the miners only worked little piles of rock up the middle of where the water is currently. So 100 years ago or sometime around 1900, they worked the drainage. Well, I took my metal detector and started working these benches and found that the upper benches are loaded with gold. So I talked to the landowner because it happened to be private land, and he's like, well, I kind of thought it might be something up there, and in your, go ahead and metal detect if you want, but I don't want to mine it yet. It might be the last remaining money on the ranch.
The guy with the glasses is Jim. But anyhow, that's the question for you, Jim.
Yeah, a drone can really help you with mapping and looking. That's one good thing about the technology we have. The biggest thing I would say, to Ray, and I think Keith kind of did a little bit maybe, but is to get somebody in there to do some drone magnetics from 50 or 100 feet above the ground and try to find some hot spots that go test. See if you've got concentration, because you could have, LiDAR is possible too. LiDAR could give you some depth to bedrock and things just visually from
LiDAR, laser.
Yeah,
it only gives you the surface of the rock. It'll penetrate penetration.
Right,
that's
but it'll go through the gravel somewhat. It'll give you some anomaly.
Radar will.
Yeah,
but LiDAR, I don't believe does.
Going for magnetics, I think, would be Ray's best chance. Is go for any high anomalies in magnetics, or iron in some kind of metal, and look for those anomalies and go for those for your testing. Because in that situation, you could have possibly in a drainage like that, you may have nothing concentrated. It's the whole damn thing's full of gold, but none of it's actually economic, and that could be a nightmare. Ideally, if you can at least get down to getting some targets established and see if you've got economic, ore body enough to say that this is worth the expense we're spending. LiDAR works really good with like we've used it because it takes the trees out of the mountain. It takes all the ground cover off. You can see the old test pits. You can see possibly some old mines that you weren't even able to find. The LiDAR really can give you a kind of an overall ground thing. Well, yeah, ideally, Ray, if the information's out there and somebody has it, oh my gosh, that would really set you up for dialing in.
Yep. And say, if not, you could probably get it done reasonably priced, even if you had to pay for it. But I'll bet you you can find somebody that would do it at a serious discount.
I would think somebody would do it for a discount, Ray, just because you got a TV show, and if they can get a little bit of PR out of that, it looks good for them and their company.
Tinfoil hat goddess.
We'll let Eve in here for a little bit, and we'll be back shortly.
Serving you up your daily dose of mining news, metals news, and conspiracy theories. Hi, guys.
Your weekly dose.
Yep. The weekly dose. So, we're over on mining.com to start with here. If the internet decides to load. The gold price nears a 1-week high amid rising Omicron fears. Because I am the tinfoil hat goddess. Yeah. Well, the tinfoil hat, hard hat note with deluxe ears and a brass deflector bow is basically our little humor here because I tie in world news and the current fringe conspiracy theories and prepper talk with gold mining. So, tinfoil hat. Gold prices reversed course to approach a 1 week peak on Monday as renewed risks to global economic growth from rising Omicron cases overshadowed pressure from a stronger US dollar. Spot gold rebounded from an earlier slump and rose 0.5% to 1811.81 per ounce by 11:40 a.m. Eastern Time. U.S. gold futures stayed relatively flat at 1813.10 per ounce in New York. Meanwhile, the dollar index rose from its weakest level in nearly a week. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the brass deflector bow is to deflect the mind rays from the government. The ears are to pick up buzzes from the tinfoil hat community and the world at large. Just so everybody knows. And by the way, it's great for intimidating IRS agents and other petty bureaucrats. You know. Meanwhile, the dollar index rose from its weakest level in nearly a week, which makes the greenback price gold less attractive for holders of non-US currency. Still, the outlook for gold in the first quarter of 2022 is upbeat, with the main driver being inflation, which is keeping a floor under prices, Jim Wyckoff, senior analyst at Kitco Metals, told Reuters. The underlying support comes from inflation concerns, Wyckoff said, adding the leanings of the Fed for a bit tighter monetary policy seems to have assuaged the gold traders a bit. No, Terry, I did not get a new tinfoil hat for Christmas. I am working on an amazing steampunk design. You'll be seeing it at some point in the future. While there is a firmer US dollar, there isn't a lot of movement in gold today, said quantitative commodities research analyst Peter Fertig, adding one of the main reasons for the lack of liquidity is closed markets over Christmas. Oh, wow. Slightly higher yields increase the opportunity cost for holding gold, which is weighing a little on gold prices, Fertig added. Although quiet overall this week, the low liquidity makes headline sensitivity more pronounced, as the thin markets are likely to make for more jittery price action if something were to happen. Oh, well, we all know that nothing's going to happen. Everything is just peachy. Absolutely peachy. We all know this is peachy, you know. Yeah, only one Earth, David. At the moment. You never know. There are other worlds, people. Well, you know, Goldstream, there are times when I am almost but not quite fond of Lord Malarkey, if only for his comedic value. Though I really don't like the fact that his comedy usually results in higher prices at the supermarket. And as for Trudeau, the man has excellent taste in really tacky, idiotic socks, okay? I mean, let's face it, his socks are just to die for. I absolutely love the socks. Don't like the guy wearing them. Love the socks. We all know this. And once again, lithium is the big story of the year in mining. I mean, all of us are in for gold and silver, and I absolutely understand that, though I am a crystal person myself, of course. But lithium, copper, and the various other critical minerals on the United States critical minerals list, which recently greatly expanded, are the main focus in a lot of places right now. Lithium prices skyrocketed in 2021, with the benchmark index more than doubling and key prices in China hitting records. Driving the frenzy was and is the metal's role in transitioning the world toward a greener economy. Woohoo! As it is a key component for the rechargeable batteries used to power electric vehicles. And speaking of electric vehicles, did everybody see the story on Breitbart? Some dude got socked with a $22,000 repair cost for his Tesla. So he blew it up. Cool explosion. Really cool explosion. It was absolutely wonderful.
Well, the Beyond the Press channel, was that in Finland?
I believe so. Limited supply not only helped prices, but pushed companies moving to meet demand, which made lithium center stage in our news coverage. Now, on the matter of Tesla, I'm sure everybody has noticed that Elon Musk has been absolutely owning a certain pesky United States senator lately. It's been wonderful theater in the Twitterverse going on here. Because good old Elon, of course, as of this year, is going to pay the most taxes that have ever been paid in United States history, and quite possibly the most taxes ever paid in world history. The man is shelling out the equivalent of over $1.5 million a day in taxes. Sadly, some of our senators who have absolutely zero grasp of economics, along with zero grasp of their actual genetic heritage, as we all know, have decided Elon's a freeloader. You know, he's obviously a freeloader. He's only paying 1.5 mil a day. I mean, come on now. That's just insane. Absolutely insane. There are a couple of really big lithium mines hanging out in Nevada, and I believe there's one in California. Some of them want to expand, and a few are looking at opening again. However, they're running into problems from environmentalists. There's nothing really new about that, unfortunately. Paul, I can totally get with you when it comes to the battery banks for a solar farm if a person wanted to do solar. I mean, that they do have their uses in that regard. It is quite interesting that someone actually blew one up, and it was a spectacular explosion, I will say.
Beyond the press channel.
I was very, very, very impressed with the explosion. Yeah, exactly, Ray. The batteries can be repaired, but they're dangerous and laborious to repair. They're also dangerous and laborious to recycle. The entire green thing going on is not necessarily being advanced for actual environmental purposes. If it were, there would be a lot more fanfare and a lot more excitement regarding the natrium plant that is going to be being built in one of our neighboring states here, Wyoming. Now, for those who aren't familiar with it, this particular natrium technology uses superheated melted salt or something. Anyway, the darn things can't really melt down the way like Chernobyl's and stuff can. Super high-tech, really green nuclear power, along with deuterium reactors, which can actually use the waste from old nuclear power plants in a new nuclear power plant to make it not waste anymore. However, for some reason unknown to any normal thinking human being, the green people and the climate change activists are utterly and completely against this one very practical way of actually promoting some real green energy. Kind of makes you wonder whether the green energy thing is actually about green energy at all. But of course it must be. Our government told us it was. We all know that.
Key bono.
And yes, Paul, there is not a way right now, and probably won't be for a long time, for an electric vehicle to replace the carbon footprint it makes. And also, regular cars actually do make a smaller carbon footprint, which is drastically funny. But then again, for those of us who are old enough to remember history, and I'm sure most of us are here, the first vehicles made were actually electric vehicles and steam-powered vehicles, and both kind of went by the wayside very early in automotive history because the mathematics was not there in terms of efficiency. And the mathematics still isn't there in terms of efficiency. But try explaining that to a Tesla owner. It just doesn't work. They're a little bit weird, Tesla owners, you know. Yeah, I don't know if the natrium brand is the way to go myself, Chris. I haven't done enough research on the other brands out there. that one just caught my attention because of the players involved, such as our dear friend Bill Gates and Bloomberg. Very interesting. But then again, one has to wonder what's going on there too, you know? Yeah, EVs can, except up here, Chris, a lot of the people up here that own EVs discover the hard way that unless you're keeping them in a heated garage, even in the city, they get a little bit unreliable because it's kind of cold up here. I mean, it's like 260 degrees Kelvin at the moment or somewhere close to it. So it's a little bit cold.
252.
252 Kelvin. Okay, well, that says it all. But basically, the consensus of opinion across the financial aspects this week, the most conservative estimate I have seen for opening prices for gold in 2022 was 1900 from Credit Suisse. Bank of America, Chase, and a few of the other big boys are still talking about gold hitting 20 to 2200, maybe as high as 2500 by the end of next year. I think they're underestimating because they're not taking into account the actual state of the world as we know it at the moment. Some of you may have noticed that, yes, inflation is still here. Despite Lord Malarkey proclaiming great victory in lowering gas prices an entire 10 cents a gallon on average nationwide for less than a week, gas prices are going up again. Heating prices are going up again. My protein shakes went up. I am totally and completely bummed. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Gym membership prices have not gone up. That makes me happy. Okay? Did I really, Terry? Maybe. It's entirely possible. Also, several of the financial pundits out there in the metal world are saying that the prices for precious metals, gold, silver, and platinum in particular, are going to be going through a period of flux for the next 2 to 3 months where you're going to see a lot of rapid shifts and a lot of volatility as they reach a consolidation point. Part of that is because the Fed is still trying to decide what they should actually do in terms of an economic policy. And part of that is because of Omicron fears. Part of that is because of the supply chain crisis, which continues unabated and is actually getting worse, despite Lord Malarkey's pronouncement that it has been healed. You know, another victory, by the way. This administration is overflowing with victories, people. If things get any better, we won't know whether to poop or go blind. Yeah, it's really good these days. And yes, taxes are going up and up. Yes, the dollar is going down. Prices are going up at the same time. The two are not necessarily unrelated. There are more drivers to inflation than just the dollar itself. Well, Goldstream, I'll tell you, even when it's zero, Bugs does not like to start. Okay, Bugs just does not like to start even when it's zero. I think Bugs prefers a little bit more clement weather than that, but we do have a freeze plug or block heater, whatever, you know, that male stuff that the goddess does not fuss with. That's Professor Hardrock's department. But all things considered, the consensus of opinion for precious metals in the coming year is gold coming out at around 2,500 an ounce by the end of the year is the average, with the low figure looking at 1,900, the high figure, some people are saying 5,000, which I think they're kind of nuts. Their tinfoil hats are a lot tighter than mine is, quite obviously. Silver is looking like it's going to come out at around 40 an ounce if it follows the patterns that some people believe it will follow. So that's pretty good for us. it is still well worth looking at small mining claims where there's also a high percentage of copper or other lower value metals. Currently, we are experiencing nickel shortages. We're experiencing aluminum shortages. So if you have cans that need to be recycled, please recycle your cans. We're experiencing steel supply chain issues, of course. It's not like this is a surprise to anyone who pays attention. These things could get worse depending on what goes on in, of all things, the real estate market in Pandaland. Now, some people may remember back to the Japanese real estate market crash, crises, etc. What was that, in the 1980s?
What, Japan?
Yeah, Japan.
89.
In 89, the Japanese real estate market went into a total ridiculous situation to the point where a stack of $10,000 bills.
No, $10,000.
$10,000 in a stack placed on a piece of ground in Tokyo would not pay for the piece of ground it was sitting on. That's how big things were. Now, when you get a bubble that big, it breaks. And when it breaks, very, very messy things happen. Now, in Japan, very, very messy things did not happen that badly or as badly as they could have because the Japanese had their money diversified out across the stock market and retail and various capitalistic things going on. In China, however, at the present time, almost 70% of all their assets are invested in real estate, including things like those ghost cities that are crumbling and a few that had to be demolished because they were falling down. They don't have their money diversified anywhere, and Evergrande is melting down, it is defaulting, it is not paying people, and outside interests here in the United States and elsewhere are only going to throw so much more money into this before they run in the other direction. So when the Chinese real estate market finally finishes collapsing, the collapse is going to be on an epic scale that probably can't even be estimated because obviously it's very difficult seeing information through the filter of the Chinese state and its control over the flow of information. So nobody even knows just how bad it is. But the experts are pretty darn sure it's a whole lot worse than Japan was in 89 and a whole lot worse than anything anybody else has ever seen anywhere. Now, what the Chinese will decide to do when everything completely devolves into chaos is anyone's guess. They are making all kinds of noises. Russia's making all kinds of noises too. Lord Malarkey is not making noises. Lord Malarkey has gone to Delaware where he is eating ice cream and, at least hopefully there he does not have his pen and his phone with him. As long as he's there, he's not making trouble in DC, which is fine with me. Oh, that makes sense, Ray. I would love to get up to Alaska. Oh, I really, really want to go to Alaska someday. I totally want to go to Nome. I mean, I know it's silly, but yeah, I would like to pan gold on the beaches at Nome. I doubt I'd find anything, but I don't really care. Now, if there's crystals up there, oh, I'm definitely there, dude. I mean, that's just... As it stands now, you may have noticed that the cream cheese shortage is still continuing. The cream cheese shortage may continue for some time. The cream cheese shortage, along with a few other shortages we had last year, is being blamed on ransomware. This is interesting because there was also a major ransomware hack on several major payroll services across the country just before Christmas, which caused a lot of people's salaries to get messed up. And in the last year, the number of ransomware attacks on U.S. and other businesses has increased exponentially. The terrorists, whether those terrorists are state-sponsored, money-sponsored, or just plain very, very rude people, have now discovered that the best and easiest way to make a whole lot of money in a hurry without having to do anything is to mount ransomware attacks. And as much as these attacks are highlighting and bringing into focus just how disastrously porous our cybersecurity systems are, not just on state levels and government levels, but on business levels, there doesn't seem to be all that much being done about it. Now, the cybersecurity types are saying that this is going to be the new normal going forward, because what usually happens in these cases is a ransomware takes down something like the number one and just about the only major cream cheese manufacturer in the United States. At that time, the manufacturer will do anything to get back into production as fast as possible, so they just pay and pay and pay some more and let everybody else figure it out later so they can get back to work. These attacks are something that a lot of companies need to be preparing for a whole lot better than they are. But more than that, they highlight something that all of us need to be fundamentally concerned about, and that is the number of bottlenecks in our supply chain. As it stands now, a very, very small group of meat processing companies control 85% of beef production in the United States. And most of those companies are not owned by Americans. They're owned by foreign interests. This is a disastrous thing for our national security and for our home security. Because these bottlenecks, first of all, allow for rampant price manipulation that has a severe outsized effect on all of us. That's why cattle ranchers were going broke during the pandemic, because the prices they were getting for live weight were being artificially depressed, and the prices that the production company, the middleman in the middle, were putting out were artificially inflated so that everybody could make more money in the middle. This sucks the lifeblood out of the producers, and it sucks the lifeblood out of us on the other end as well as the consumers. So one thing that needs to be focused on in terms of our local politics, and should be focused on in terms of our state and national politics, is beginning to break up these monopolies. We have antitrust laws for a reason. These monopolies need to be broken up. We need to see more resurgence of regional and local processing for food, regional and local ownership of food. These are national security things that no administration in my lifetime has effectively addressed, because our politicians are so busy offshoring everything they can, or allowing businesses to offshore everything they can. It's a very bad idea to offshore your food. In related news on that, people in the United Kingdom who have been paying attention, yeah, that is true, Paul. It is. I have seen figures of up to 80%, actually.
That one here.
Oh man, Tricky, what happened?
He fell and smashed his ribs up.
Sheesh.
Yeah, he's
Wow, Tricky. That's terrible. I hope you get to feeling better. Try hot baths with Epsom salts if you have them.
Love the picture of you and the family, Tricky.
And yes, Tricky, your family is so beautiful. I loved that picture. Thank you. That was wonderful. It came to the attention of a few people in England when they started actually pulling their heads out of the sand and wondering what would happen if there were food shortages again, like there were during lockdown 1.0, that they'd start doing a little digging, because of course everyone knows their dearly beloved government will obviously issue them ration cards and issue them care packages. They found out when they went digging that the UK government has zero strategic food supplies for the civilians and minimal strategic food supplies for their military because they have such a robust supply chain and they make 20% of their own food. Wow. Really cool, huh? I don't want to know what we have for strategic food supplies anymore because we send most of ours overseas these days.
Goose egg on that.
Mm-hmm. But that is the thing. It is very, very important that we stock up. We don't stock up because we're hoarders. We stock up because we want something to eat when things get really ridiculous. We stock up because the prices on our food are going up every single month. And I'm sure that especially people like Ray in Alaska, up there prices are high anyway because of where they are in the supply chain. But it is something to consider that going forward, we should look for politicians that are actually willing to focus on this aspect of national security, securing an American robust supply chain with plenty of local regional processing.
Entirely possible, Mohammed.
Because that is kind of important. Anyway, I'm going to give you back to the guys so they can talk about mining and gold and things. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eva.
Well, things,
Yeah.
Oh, and Mohammed, in terms of who's going to Delaware, Governor DeSantis of Florida has been talking about trying to bus all the illegal aliens that the federal government is sending to Florida up to Delaware, which is the home state of the president. So I think it's a great idea.
President company while he eats his ice cream in his basement.
Yeah.
Let's go,
I
Brandon.
saw that, Paul. And I've been stocking up on coffee for, I don't know, the last year.
Oh, there's going to be a coffee shortage for the next 18 months.
I've been
Paul.
piling it in.
Yeah.
18 months on your coffee shortage.
I'll be real miserable without coffee.
So, anyhow.
This is why all y'all got to drink soda.
Yeah. How about water? We got plenty of water.
All I have to worry about is an aluminum can shortage.
Yep. Anyhow, so I don't see any reason to think things are going to get any better anytime soon.
Probably not.
So life's getting interesting. Although one thing I do think probably the Omicron will wipe out the COVID problem because
I think people are waking up to that.
Well, it's not just that, but it seems to be a natural vaccine. You get a cold and now you're immune. That would be great. Oh, Paul, you have no idea how much Eva drinks in terms of soda.
I need some blood in my caffeine system now today.
Caffeine system.
She's drunk 3 12-packs in the last 3 or 4 days. Something like 5 days, she says.
And it's only 2.5. The other half is in there on the floor.
That's sweet, Goldstream. That's just amazing. Of course, it sounds like a government job. I have an acquaintance that started working at the Rocky Flats nuclear facility cleanup. That's where they used to make the atom bombs. And he called my brother up one time and said, I think I've got job security. And Randy says, why? He says, they want us to bring the radiation in the groundwater to below background levels.
Yeah.
This may take a while.
See how good the science is there.
Yep.
Hey, Trekkie. Yeah, it's good to be back again after a few weeks of not being here. So,
Goldstream, maybe they can just fight it out between them like they used to. Man, that's well, they'd have to have some overlapping claims if over 100% of the land in BC is claimed by one Indian tribe or another. Have to have some overlap. Yep. That'll get interesting. Oh, yes, life is getting confusing. Very, very confusing. Luckily, we're into gold mining, which should do reasonably well as long as the regulators don't get in our way. So that's, in a way, it's an opportunity for us, because I don't know. I don't know how long the regulations are going to hang in there, because I just don't see it. I don't know. I don't see it holding together for 6 months at this point before it gets.
I kind of thought we'd
pretty
already
bizarre.
be coming apart here at the first of the year, but so far they're printing and keeping it floating, I guess.
Yeah. I'm just surprised that the supply chain is still holding up reasonably well.
There's little fractures every day you're hearing about a shortage, things that people are having a hard time getting. And I mean, some stuff's kind of came back. There was certain, for a while, there's a real shortage of tires here.
Yeah.
They've kind of started to catch up on tires coming from China or Taiwan, wherever they're coming from.
Tricky. I have Eva. That's all I need from Santa. So we did a very quiet one. How did your Christmas go?
We had a real quiet one too. That was just really nice, actually, not to be traveling or going anywhere.
Yeah, somebody said car radiators are. Oh, that's right. That was you last night, Ray. Yep. I haven't looked too much on the, manufacturer side, but some stores, like the dollar stores, their stock is really down.
Yeah, empty.
Other places it's kind of spotty, but significant.
Well, Walmart's even significant.
Yeah.
When you start walking around, you realize how many shelves are empty.
Ray says Ford parts are getting hard to find. Lucky I got a Chevy. Tricky says same thing there.
Yeah.
3M products, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, I suppose a lot of that's been shoved out of the country too.
Yeah, Goldstream. The problem is even more serious than that, because if the Chinese have a real estate collapse, which appears pretty much inevitable right now, that's going to have all kinds of ripple effects on their society, their economy, and stuff like that, which, since we need them for a lot of stuff, can have a lot of effect on us. So I don't know, how it's going to all wind up, but it doesn't look to me like it's going to get better until it gets a substantial or a huge amount worse. We shall see. And I have no confidence that things are going to be heading up before it gets a lot worse. Yep. Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it, Paul. I know it's the auto shop next door to me. They got stuff lined up and piled into their back lot. And I asked one of the guys one day here a couple weeks ago, what's going on over there? And he said, they can't get parts. He said, we've got customers' cars that have been sitting here for 90 days or longer waiting for a sensor or, something simple that normally would have been fixed and out the door on the same day, and they can't get parts.
Let's see. What effect was in Japan in 1989? The real estate market collapsed in Japan, took the stock market and the economy down with it, and it took them 10, 20 years to get back kind of on their feet.
They haven't recovered.
And they haven't completely recovered yet.
They're still floating it. Almost 30 some years later.
Yep. 30 some years later.
They're still floating their economy.
And we are tied up very heavily in the Chinese real estate market.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of pension funds.
Yeah, a lot of your retirement funds are tied up in China real estate. So it'll be real interesting to see how that goes.
Taiwan, China, countries, especially dictatorships that are having real serious internal problems, quite often start something offshore to distract or whatever, create an enemy. The problem with Taiwan, if it's attacked by China, semiconductor chips suddenly become almost impossible to get worldwide. So that's going to have a lot of knock-on effects that are indirect. Gold stream, China won't collapse, just kind of hurt for a bit. Yeah, remember the USSR, the only other superpower in the world? Remember what happened to it? Yeah, it collapsed. Yeah, Ray, that is a possibility.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
Yeah, I agree, Roberts. The fast food restaurants are operating, and I'm really annoyed because I wanted to get a chicken chalupa, and the only Taco Bell in town, it's only drive-through.
Yep.
And my truck's too tall. So I can't get a chicken chalupa in Montana.
You got to get out and walk.
It doesn't do any good. They won't let you walk through the drive-through.
They won't?
Oh, you could get run over.
It's a security thing.
Safety
Oh,
hazard,
my
yeah.
God.
Yep.
Well, half the summer, neither Dairy Queen was open. I was like, well, that ought to pay the real estate taxes, huh?
Let's see, those restaurants will then have skeleton crews trying to meet demands. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't see any big shortages here, but I didn't go shopping. You go shopping around Christmas time?
Yeah, we did a little bit. I mean, the stores seem to be pretty full of stuff. I don't know.
Well, the stock levels overall in Walmart are about 20% lower than they
Oh,
used
yeah.
to be.
Yeah, we didn't even go in. I didn't even go to Walmart, but
yeah,
I don't think there was the selection that you would have had, 2 years ago, though. I think that you're seeing less and less selection.
Yep. Lower stock levels, less selection.
Yeah.
And with the fertilizer shortages, the grain shortages.
A chicken chalupa.
Mexican food.
It's like they take a fluffy type tortilla and wrap it around. It's kind of like a flatbread. Think of a chicken pita with Mexican seasoning.
That's fried.
That's fried, yeah. I don't have a problem with overheating the engine right now, Roberts. How far back do we have to go? They don't care.
Yeah, about 1890, I'm figuring.
They don't seem to care how far back they have to go.
You can plug your electric car into a bush or something. I don't know what their plan is. Yeah, Jeff, you're probably right. 70 years will be close.
Better is in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'd say, notice everybody here is going, I'm scared that it ain't going to be too good. Now, that's an interesting observation in itself.
Now,
can you ever remember in the past, except maybe like during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where you had such a large percentage of the people
realize something's wrong? Everybody realizes something's wrong. It's just what are we going to do to fix it?
Yeah. That's, I'd say it's so universal right now that I find that pretty interesting. That there's so many people who have the same feeling. I can remember the JFK assassination day. I remember walking home that day. I was like 7, something like that, like from first grade or something, but that was about it. Yeah, John, that's one of the problems. If you're not self-sufficient, it's awfully hard to win a war. I think China is going to find that one out here pretty soon too. And China is so dependent on foreign everything that I don't know if they've really thought out how the heck do you continue to maintain a war effort when you've got to get all the supplies from your enemies. It's like, come on, could you sell us the food? No.
I don't see a good out for this whole thing. I don't know how it collapses or what happens, but
yeah,
it's going to be rough.
It's going to be very
because we don't make anything here. I mean, we don't have a tire plant in the United States. We don't have a battery plant. We don't make most of the car parts, to even fix what you've got. So think of 3 years down the road. If you don't fix anything, what do you got left?
Well, if you had people focusing on creating the ability to become self-sufficient, we might be okay by the time it hits the fan, but that's definitely not the case now.
No, I grew up, my father had a machine shop, my brother had a machine shop. Well, Clinton sold those guys down the river many, many years ago, and those were good paying jobs, and they created stuff right in a local town.
Yeah,
and
John,
you don't have very much of that. We still do have some, aviation manufacturing here in this country, but beyond that, not much. Some agricultural equipment.
Yeah, John, I did notice that all of a sudden the information from the JFK assassination has been put off like another half a century or something. I find it interesting that the information that Pfizer gave to the FDA to get their vaccine approved for emergency use is not going to be released completely for another 75 years.
75 years. That asks a question, doesn't it?
Where is it, little one?
Down in the car.
Yeah, brilliant.
Well, you don't have to read it to them. You can just tell them it was extremely official, extremely ominous, and threatened criminal charges.
Yeah. As an interesting little aside, if you have to get a COVID test sometime and it happens to come back positive, and it's in any kind of an official, like you go to Walgreens or this or that, be aware that will probably be reported to your local health authorities. And if you have not already got a negative COVID test, when you get a letter that says you are now ordered to quarantine under penalty of criminal and civil penalties, you might be a little nervous. So it's worth a second shot, because sometimes those tests are not accurate. And I could just see where that could really screw up somebody's life for 14 days.
Well, actually,
if you have to stay at home
until your doctor or a public health official clears you.
Yeah.
So it's not even a set period of time, which means somebody needs to get a copy of his negative test.
Well, it would be fine if somebody hadn't left the letter in the truck. Yeah, just got it today in the mail. I love that. From the time you get notified, I don't pick up my mail for a week.
Haven't been notified yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea what the deal is, but right away, again, there's certain behaviors that just, okay, that's very, very suspicious. And then they wonder, yeah, I'm taking vitamin D, 4,000 units a day. I did. I got another test. It went negative, which is why I could get my surgery. That's the only reason I was getting a test to begin with. I had no symptoms. So, I got a positive in the morning and a negative in the evening. Zinc, yep, that too. D3, but you need to give it a little time. You can't take it when you first get sick. You got to be taking it all the time so it can be metabolized and put where it needs to be. It's kind of like it doesn't do any good to get the food to the warehouse. It's got to get to the grocery stores, and then it's got to get into people's kitchens. Don't know about that, Roberts, but it's not going to hurt you. But anyhow, yeah, if you get a COVID test, be aware. You may very shortly get a letter. Okay. Cells from, they tested the vaccine on those cells. As far as I know, none of those cells are actually in the vaccine. But those tissue cultures were used to test the vaccine. That has been confirmed. Yeah, that's why I'm taking 4,000 units. That should be plenty to keep me in the range. I think you can take up to 10,000. Yeah, it's a very confusing time, and
Bizarre.
again, to me, I look at how people act and what they want to do to try and understand their motivations, and their behavior is not consistent with the motivation of trying to help as many people as possible, as much as possible.
Pretty much, Roberts.
I know a lot about dihydrogen monoxide, Jared. We got a lot of it sitting out on the front porch right now.
Solidified, no less.
Yeah, it's solid dihydrogen monoxide, not the usual liquid stuff. It's crystalline, absolutely.
Thanks for being here, Ray. And if you do have questions or anything, shoot them off to Keith. And
yeah,
if we can help you somehow up there get a plan, we sure would.
Yeah, and Ray, you can send me an email if you want to talk directly. We can exchange phone numbers that way. It's hardrocku@outlook.com. But yeah, as I say, we'd be happy to help you out on that. I know I'm not available to go help you on that, but I mean, you seem like a nice guy, and it looks like an interesting thing. And so anything we can do to help you out will be great. Depends on if you get it down your, whether it's the esophagus or the trachea, but yeah, it can be deadly stuff. Not countless, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them, probably millions over history, absolutely. And I mean, it's a major component of acid rain. It's used in a wide variety of industrial processes. I mean, there's dihydrogen monoxide in every lake and river in this country in substantial quantities, potentially lethal quantities if administered properly.
And much of it's adulterated.
Yeah, it's funny. Right now, it's so cold that the dihydrogen monoxide is precipitating from the air. It's hilarious. This is little stuff coming out. Yep. Yeah, don't eat yellow DMA. Yep. Take care, Ray.
The white wine tastes good.
Absolutely. No, not DMSO, DHMO, dihydrogen monoxide. Anyhow,
yeah.
So I say that's interesting. So again, for those who came in late, doing some agitation testing on the leaching to see how much more effective continual agitation is compared to very intermittent agitation. Yeah, I know that stuff too. That's pretty good. It has some interesting characteristics, but we were making a joke. And doing some testing on Coulter's concentrates. We're going to be doing some smelting of resin here shortly once everything shows up.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff, because we're here to help you guys any way we can, and that's been the fun part of this. Is sometimes the teacher gets to learn too.
Well, we have fun. We definitely have fun. That's for sure. And it is nice to help people out, either to help them succeed or to help them avoid major losses.
Right. And that's a big part of
that's
the mining
big,
actually is
part.
Avoiding the, a major catastrophe in your expenses.
Yeah. That's,
if you can learn from somebody else's mistake, by all means, try to.
It's a lot cheaper. Trust me. Yeah. That's why Chris was saying, depends on what it's mixed with. Exactly. Anyhow, take over for a minute. And I'll be right back.
I don't even know where to go here.
Oh,
exactly,
I don't know.
But
Helena would be.
Helena? Yeah, I'm already in Helena. Already made it there.
that should make it pretty easy.
But, going over, some of the earlier stuff with, paying attention to test results versus recovery in your placer operations is a big one. If you got variations to what the test results were, then you need to back up and figure out what's going wrong. Is it the sluice box? Is it dilution of the material you're hauling to the plant? You have to dial that in. Once you've ran that material and it's not economic, you've missed an opportunity to become economic, first of all, and now you're spending money and effort in a loss situation or a break-even situation, which to me is still a loss, and it's direct to your operation. So if you're not making money, you're losing money theoretically. It's a damn expensive lesson that you don't want to learn. Sooner or later, you will have days that you're not getting maybe the numbers, because any placer situation can vary a little bit from, fairly good ground, all of a sudden an area that isn't.
It's precipitating.
Yeah, it keeps snowing a little.
I love snow.
But, like I was saying, recovery in this business is everything, whether it's hard rock or placer. It's not about the yardage or tonnage as much as it is the recovery. Are you recovering what is in the material? Are you getting it out? Is it consistent with your testing? If your tests and your recoveries are different, there's something wrong.
Actually, I heard the dihydrogen monoxide thing in 1971. It's been going around a while.
There's a whole website devoted to it that lists all the dangers of dihydrogen monoxide.
Yeah, it's Lincoln. It's a business, whether you're doing it for a hobby or not. I mean, if you're running material and you're not getting the gold out of it, you want to be, even at a hobby level.
Goldstream
pays for new toys.
In many cases, that's true, but you have to be careful, because if they may be trying to take your operation or cause you problems, you can also give them too much information. So you need to vet the people that you're having look at your operation and make sure you've got it locked in.
Another thing I've done, Goldstream, is do some, non-compete clause, a simple paper, or something on that realm as far as keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
Don't be,
Yeah, look at the Hoffmans on the first season of Gold Rush. They didn't have an automatic renewal or anything like that, so the guy just bought it right out from under him, and there's nothing they could do. So you have to protect yourself, but yeah.
Well, I thought we'd do a show, and maybe I'll just do a separate video on contracting a claim like they did. You go and contract a claim and start mining. In mining contracts and things, you definitely want to get yourself in a position that you start to get into some good ground or good gold and everything's going good. The last thing you want is the owner saying, well, you guys are out of here. My son's going to mine it now. I mean, you don't want to get in that situation. So that's where a contract becomes very important, whether you have the first option to buy the property so they can't sell it out from under you and without you knowing it, or being in a situation that as long as you fulfill some of the terms of your contract yearly, they can't throw you off. You can decide to quit, but they can't say you're done.
I would agree, John. The guy seems to be a marketing person, not a tech rep. Yeah. And yes, I like to get information from a variety of sources too. You guys have been a lot of help to me, especially Chris. But there's, you just have to be careful not to give away too much information. But you use your head.
There'd be a lot of consistency in like anything in the United States as far as doing contract stuff. The biggest thing is you always end up doing some research. Make sure that people actually own the mineral rights. They may own the surface and not the mineral rights, or there's a lot of things. And that's why I think it really means making a video about that, because there is a lot involved that you want to check and double check and make sure that it's all good. Yeah, the East Coast is definitely a little bit different with much, much more private land, but that doesn't mean that there's not good opportunities for some mining there either.
Yeah, Goldstream, that makes sense.
Wait, Goldstream, we have the same problems here. I mean, and now we've got political controversy, especially on some of this federal mining claims. It's you just deal with it, I guess, some of it as it comes, but you hope that you kind of have a heads up as to what's coming at you.
Jeff, you can potentially underground mine it depending upon the situation. They've done that many a time.
Yeah, actually, Jeff, on the property that we did back a number of years ago, we had 18 feet of hydraulic tailings dumped on top of virgin ground. So we literally stripped 18 to 20 feet of material to get to the virgin ground that we stripped about probably another close to 10 feet off of to get into the paying gravels. So yeah, it was quite an adventure in that part of it, but luckily it was above the water table for the most part, so it made dozering it and moving that level of material out of there not a bad situation once we knew that there was gold under there.
And Goldstream, my question is, are they actually taking advantage of it, or are they just screwing it up? I mean, in Mexico in 1911, they kicked out all the Americans, and a lot of mines didn't get ever reopened. Well, Yuma Border Journal, I used to live in Yuma for many, many years. My brother still does. So we'll give you our best shot here in terms of education. And
how is Yuma?
Yeah, Eva asks, how is Yuma? How's it going down there?
Oh, I think there's a lot of political problem in some of what's going on, and because nationalizing most industries is the communist way of doing things, and you have to get rid of all the little guys in order to nationalize it, or kind of go to the level of fascism where the corporations own it all.
Yeah, Goldstream. That's the thing, is that if you go back far enough, who knows who owned it whenever? You gotta. That's why they have statutes of limitations. Otherwise, the world would be unworkable at all.
I actually watched that Gold Jade Fever. I liked that show. They were actually that was kind of interesting.
Arizona sucks rocks,
Well, like Chris brought up, if you've got hydraulic tailings that have value, that's a situation that it's going to take a lot of testing and test holes to verify what's actually reminable. If some of it is reminable, then you just got to work the numbers to figure out what's the most efficient way to do it so it's economic enough to do.
Oh.
No, yeah, I mean, honestly, 20 feet of overburden anymore is not a big issue as long as you've got room to move it out of your way, at least to a certain extent. I mean, some of the stuff I've been looking at, in the past few years, some of it's 50 feet deep, and that creates a little more problem in working numbers.
Yeah, sounds about right, John. Yeah, Goldstream. I mean, if you go back far enough, nobody who owns it now owns it, and that's what they've done. As saying the politicians should just say, sorry, there's a time in the past where it changed hands, and that's just it. But I say it's going to be interesting to see if they actually try and go back far enough. See who the original were. Well, no, it's not the Algonquins. It's the yeah. It can get pretty hilarious. Yeah, that's what you were saying. More than 100% ownership because of competing claims. Absolutely. That's the whole thing with this reparations for slavery too. How do you determine who gets reparations? What's the formula? Who pays? I mean, does a black guy that just moved to this country 30 years ago from Jamaica, does he get reparations because of his skin color? If not, how do you do it? We do genealogy on everyone. What happens if you have a white guy whose family fought in the Civil War to free the slaves? Does he get a credit? That's why you just got to say, okay, look, more than that time ago, doesn't matter. Yep.
Yeah, Paul, that cut Parker's making there, putting $1 million+ into digging extremely deep. But they said they had some of the best drill holes that they'd ever had on a piece. So you can understand what he's doing, but is the gamble, I mean, it's always a poker game, and you definitely want to be holding the win in hand. I don't know.
How big are the cobbles in this stuff?
It's mainly a lot of mud. It was like 40 some feet of mud. And then there was a certain level of, 20 feet of gravel or something. They're basically 80 feet to pay gravel.
Well, I know, but in the pay gravel, because you can take big augers and auger in and just auger it out from underneath all of that.
Yeah, but it's a big area. It's got to be 60 acres, 80 acres of land they've stripped.
Well, you can.
It's a
200-foot long augers.
Yeah, it's a big.
Yeah,
that'd be like long wall or long deck mining, like coal, where they go right in under it.
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of different ways. Long wall techniques might work, but yeah, you can also just take augers, set them on the ground, drive it in, pulling the stuff out, put another one in there, do it again. That. In some cases, that'll work.
Some of that long wall coal, it's amazing. They can go, what they say, 300 yards under.
In terms of what, 300 yards along the wall?
No, under. They'll make a cut, so they got a face, and they'll set that grinder up, and they can send that thing in there, belting that coal back out 300 yards. But they'll retract sometimes, but they'll add another section and run it in farther and add another section and keep. Well, they can do that without ever sending a guy underground. Well, it's just amazing.
The kind of long wall I'm talking about is usually completely underground, where it's between two tunnels, and you'll have a shearer that cuts the coal face and throws it onto a conveyor, and they have these shields that cover all that, and then those shields move forward as you cut the coal out. Now those shields move.
Now with some of this technology they got, they literally can mine huge, follow that coal under there without ever going underground, actually, just cutting the face.
Yeah. I don't know. There's no technical reason why you couldn't use some kind of long wall technology to do something like that, but it'd be pretty capital expensive. So I say there's a lot of different ways to do it. But it depends on the economics and the actual physics of the situation. How much support. I mean, if it's
realistically with gravel, it's hard to hold gravel up. It's not like going, into hard rock.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jeff. I mean, I can show you drifts here And some of the drainages we've mined in, the amount of drifting the Chinese and the white guys drifted first. I mean, some of the stuff they did is just amazing. I wouldn't want to do it, but they did it.
Well, the other thing too is you can to cut and fill. You could drive a tunnel in there, and then do your support as you go in, and then fill it up with cemented fill. Shift over and drive another tunnel next to it.
That's
fill it back up again.
A lot of the drifting they did, they stacked all the big rock over to the tunnel, and it opened the tunnel up. So they actually, only thing that left the mine was gravel that they took to the surface. And like Goldstream says, they're actually freezing ground off now on some of them underground placers. I mean, there's some neat concepts if it's valuable enough to go after.
Yep. Again, a lot of times one of the big questions is how big are the rocks?
Well, that's a big one.
If they're just little cobbles, that's one thing. If you got big giant boulders, it's a different thing.
That's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to go with you to Liberty, because I want to see they're running skid loaders in a paleo channel underground, and I really would like to see how they're doing that exactly.
I'm sure he'd be happy to see it too.
I think it'd just be really, really cool to see.
Well, you gotta come with us then.
Well, he can meet us there too.
Well, Chris knows a bunch there in California. I mean, that is something that I don't have a lot of expertise. I understand what they're doing and the whole concept, but to be actually in there looking at it and thinking what their problems through, I think would just be so educational.
Oh yeah. No, it's it should be very, very interesting. And they also have hard rock with crystalline gold too.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
he's really got some neat stuff going on over there, and that's why I just thought that would be.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on at Oak Island. I know about the Oak Island thing, but I'm not sure.
I've tried to watch it just to keep up with it. That's quite an adventure they're on. I don't know if that'll amount to anything or not.
Yeah. You could freeze it at Oak Island too.
Oh, John, here they did a lot of tunneling here. There's places here they tunneled through the mountain to bring water from one side of the mountain over to a drainage on the other. I mean, there was a lot of neat things that they did here that even with the technology and the equipment we have nowadays, it's like, wow, to use the kind of equipment we've got to do what they did is like, how long would that take? I mean, it'd take years.
And sometimes people have no idea nowadays how much you can do if you just got enough strong pairs of hands.
It's one step at a time, which kind of brings us back to the prospecting. I mean, it all starts right here, guys. I mean, almost every big thing that's been found out there is by some guy who took the time to go figure it out, wander around and hunt. And, it starts with a prospector and it ends with a gold pan. It starts and ends kind of in the same fashion.
Oh.
That's what I find with Jeff's show down there, Jeff Williams. They're running that drift into that caliche and that. I'm like, that is cool, because that's how the old timers did it, is try to find something and start chasing it.
Yeah, Paul, that sounds like a perfectly functional way to do it. You know about Oak Island, right?
Yeah, I've been following Oak Island a lot. Because it's, I don't know, it's a treasure hunt, I guess.
Just freeze it and then dig it out. Yeah, that would work. Machines made us lazy. Yeah, and smartphones made us stupid. That's right.
Yeah. Really. I can attest to that. I used to have probably 100 phone numbers in my head. Hell, I can't even remember my own anymore.
I can remember 3. Mine, his, and my son's. One of my sons.
Yeah. Yeah, I was up there at Atlanta for a summer. That was a very interesting summer. Unfortunately, Eva got injured and had to go back to Yuma.
Tucson.
Tucson, sorry. I'm getting old.
Arizona, which sucks rocks.
Yeah. And so that was unfortunate, but oh well, made it work. I learned a lot, had some interesting times. I cut down trees, 50-foot tall trees. Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Oh, it's, you know, to go out and look at some of the historical stuff that was done around here is just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the piles of rocks these guys created and walls and bedrock sluice boxes.
Yeah, up there at Indian Creek, that mill they built up there, those walls are like, wow.
3-4 stories high, rock,
yeah.
all hand stacked rock.
Did your link show up? Not
Yes,
that I
link.
see. Is it supposed to be in my
an
email?
maybe.
Okay. So, let me look over here. What's the temperature there? Oh man, it's getting warmer. We're gonna melt. What happened?
Getting warmer?
Yeah.
This is a scurrilous rumor.
Well, we probably ought to make him.
See what we got.
Yeah, if it was posted on here, Goldstream, it won't be. YouTube will block it. Either the only ones who can post basically would be the moderators, either Chris or Mr. Lodak or Keith.
And don't ever ask Bear to post anything. He always messes it up.
I think you're going to want to see this one, little one.
Really?
Yep.
Somebody gave me a crystal? Or is
No,
it a baby?
it's a baby.
Picture
She's a
of
baby.
Yep.
Another picture.
Woohoo! Oh, how adorable.
Yep.
Such a cute baby.
Tricky Dicky sent that.
Thank you, Tricky.
I, John, have been trying to watch, some of the lost mines and some of the, guys that are just going into some of these old mines and stuff. It's somewhat interesting. I mean, some of it, yeah, is definitely boring. Some of the videos, too much repetition, but at least it's not the soap opera of Gold Rush or something.
Yeah.
I mean, one show I really like is Freddie Dodge's, Mine Rescue, because I think that really serves a neat purpose, and he really shows some of the guys, what they're not paying attention to on some of these mine sites, to take them from non-profitable to profitable with just some modifications to sluice boxes and equipment, and really looking at their operation and dissecting it, I think is a great, great thing.
Here's my email, Goldstream. Just send it there.
And Freddie's got he'll have some new episodes out here, I think in January, that are an offshoot of Gold Rush. And they were just up here in Helena here. I want to say, I think in July, they were up on a guy that I know up on his operation, trying to help him a little bit. And it was pretty darn good. They shot, I don't know, a couple 100 hours of footage. I know that up there. They were up there all week.
Roberts, I'm not familiar with Sierra Gordo. Are you?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the overproduced shows are a little too much drama.
I know who Two Toes is, but I don't subscribe to his channel.
I've been meaning to watch some of his videos, but I just haven't.
Okay, let me see here. Goodness.
Goldstream emailed you the link.
Supposedly. Where's the...
Find finding anything in his email can get challenging.
No, it can just take a while too, because it might have gone to junk.
Yeah, Goldstream. I actually started watching his show, and the minute I heard that he was protesting that new mine up there by him, I was like, okay, I'm done with him too.
Who's that?
I'd have to think of his name. Redheaded kid. I really thought it was interesting that he was trying to rebuild the old town and kind of cleaning it up. And then yet he was smelting some of his own silver ore and making some stuff. And then, the minute there was a new mine that they were trying to permit next to him, he was all against it. That just did me in. Brent Underwood. Yeah, there you go.
What?
That's the kid's name, Brent Underwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Ghost Town Living, I think, is the the YouTube site.
I haven't seen yours yet, Goldstream.
I did too.
Oh. No, it hasn't shut up yet, Goldstream. Give it a few more minutes, see what happens.
Well, we all know how it is with Hotmail.
Well, this is Outlook.
Outlook is the same thing. You know that.
Yeah.
Oh. No, I don't, little one.
Outlook, Hotmail, they're all the same nonsense. It's all Bill Gates, and Bill Gates sucks rocks.
Yeah.
This is a known fact.
Oh. Yeah, it's probably going to take them a while to get down here at this temperature. Oh. Good point. I didn't think of that, but
A little delay.
yeah. I mean, the quantum effects just slow way down. Relativity. It's relatively cold. Yeah. Oh. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
We're kind of shooting.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
That's the guy, Lincoln, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all good, and as long as it was just them. But
Yeah, it's amazing how self-focused so many people are.
well, especially to understand the history and why they did something, and then to be totally
Dick?
against it. Yeah, just to flip, a real hypocrite.
Was milligram lead? You mean like lead in a very finely divided form? It's not a bad idea to do so. I've got some 500 mesh tungsten, and I'll tell you what, once you get that mixed with your gold, you're screwed. Because it's the same density as gold is. But lead, that's light enough. You should be able to get it. Yeah, it's not a bad idea to test, with real fine lead like that. If you're gonna, if you put in 1 gram of lead and you recover 1 gram of lead, then you're getting a good recovery. But yeah, I like testing. Absolutely. Gosh, what is going to be late April or May, right?
I would say probably sometime in May. That depends on, really winter just started here, so it could go to June. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think Polka Face asked how deep's the snow here. It's probably, I don't know, 8 inches maybe at the most.
It hasn't been snowing much.
Down here, we don't have a lot. I see up on the pass above here, 10 miles up, it's probably a foot or better, but not, it's nowhere near probably normal snowfall so far. But you know
I
what?
swept this morning about 1/8 of an inch.
What, 2.5 weeks ago, we had 70 degrees here, though. I mean, it's been really bizarre fall.
Well, y'all are a bunch of pessimists anyway.
Well, it's, it could melt in February here, and we could be up there April 1st. I've been up on the mountain in April. You just don't know. Well, I got some of both, Lincoln. We're going to do some stuff with hard rock. And then, of course, I got a placer that I want to start doing the testing
Got it.
on. So we'll try to do some filming on placer testing for this summer.
I just got a lot of laboratory stuff here for the next month or two, with the resin, etc. Well, we might wind up putting together a bigger mill.
That'd be interesting. Well, thanks for being here, David.
Yeah.
We'll hope to see you next week.
Yeah, you should always test everything.
Definitely. And, some pieces of equipment work for certain ground, and you go over the hill to another drainage, and it's not the same.
Well, if the temperature doesn't rise, they'll redefine the temperature so that they'll make sure their predictions happen. I have not evaluated that yet, Tricky Dicky. I believe it said it will recover the silver.
Yeah, it's supposed to, but
and this bead that I've got
could be hard silver.
It's not a yellow bead. It's got some yellow spots on it, but it's clearly about half at a minimum some silver colored metal. Well, it could be lead because the density of lead and silver is about the same. We have silver in our ore at about the same amount as the gold. So if it's 1 ounce gold, it should be about 1 ounce silver. It fluctuates a bit, but on average, it's pretty close to the same. So that bead could easily be like, it's 2.1. So, 0.21. So it could be like 0.1 grams silver and 0.11 grams gold. That would be if we got 100% recovery on the gold. And it could be there, but I don't know yet. When I get the furnace and the cupels, I can cupel that bead and see what happens.
Thanks for being here, John.
No, I'm not familiar with Central City in Colorado. Are you, Jim?
No, I'm not. I've read a little bit of the history down in there, but I'm not familiar with it.
I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Lodak. I don't know how to set it up, but I managed to log on this week.
I can do a Zoom from home on my system. So if you wanted to set it up and get a link to me, I would just say text or email Keith with information ahead of time, and I'll get a hold of you, Mr. Lodak. We could definitely talk.
What the color of the resin was in the load of the silver? Be an interesting question. Yeah, that'd be fine, Mr. Lodak. Yeah, that's a good question, Tricky. I really don't know.
Yeah, and if we know ahead of time, Keith can come over to my house and we can definitely, we can jump on it.
I can log on from here. I was on their
Zoom?
stuff yesterday.
With Zoom call?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually managed to achieve Zoomage.
Okay.
Bizarre.
But yeah, we could definitely, get together and.
Yeah. Sounds fun. Not familiar, Roberts.
Yeah, I haven't followed him either. I was going to start. I see he had a couple of pretty good looking videos out, and I just haven't had time to sit down and watch them.
Yeah, I get kind of lazy sometimes.
He had a couple of new ones out here recently. So
Silver versus lead soldering generally cost effective, melting or smelting? I'm not sure what the question is, Lincoln. In terms of soldering, silver has a much higher melting point. That's why silver solder has other stuff mixed in with it. Yeah, Chris. Luckily, I've got a pretty good computer here, and I've got an Ethernet connection, so that works.
yeah, that
pretty
helps,
good.
I'm sure.
Yeah, Joachim got me this computer too.
And I just got a new computer and Windows 11 and set it all up because I was doing some Zoom
Windows
calls.
11.
Yeah.
Ew.
I don't know. I haven't had too much of a problem with it. It's different, but
Yeah, I should probably look him up. Where's my notepad? Anything?
right there, yeah, two toes. Yeah, he's had a couple of, they look like interesting videos. I just haven't had a chance to sit down.
Oh,
Smith's Gold. Huh. There's another one I'll have to check out. Smith's Gold. Huh.
got to do something over the winter. Well, thank you, T. It's going to be 5 or 6 months before we get back into mine.
Yeah. Before we get back to really going at it again.
Yeah, this winter thing is just weird,
Well, we can always try to get up there.
I don't think so. Not right now. Oh, I still got repair and maintenance to do on me, and I got lots of work to do here before we get back there.
Yeah.
Oh, flu is making a comeback in the U.S. after an unusual year off. Just so
I've got
everyone
some
knows.
planning, and I actually have another subject that I wrote up about 3 weeks ago to look at.
Yeah.
Look at kind of analyzing a mining situation. Maybe we can do that next week and
Okay,
kind of
Tricky.
go from there.
Oh. I want to try rigging in those temps. Things get way too brittle. You talking hoisting and such type rigging, I presume, Chris? Oh, I bet you Eva's right. I'm pretty sure we could drive up to it, but it's not legal right now. Well, thank you, Douglas. Good night.
Yeah.
Take care.
Happy New Year to you too, Lincoln. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Douglas.
I'm yawning, folks. We can keep going as long as you want. My eyes are doing fine, by the way.
We made it 3 hours. Come on, guys.
Yep.
Where are them good questions?
Yeah, that's it, man.
I agree, Goldstream. I did do work on a mine, I don't know, probably 5 years ago. I went up, snowmobiled up, put a enclosure door on it, throttled the air intake on top of the mountain on the air intake, and worked in there cleaning and mucking all winter long. Gave me something to do.
Now that's a funny name for a cookbook.
What?
50 ways to eat cock. Healthy chicken recipes with balls.
Yeah. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. Looks like we're doing pretty good there.
All righty. Any other questions?
I got another possible mine that I may attempt that next year. Work on it in the winter, underground.
Yeah, so this one we could theoretically get to it right now, I'm pretty sure, but the problem is the road is officially closed January 15th.
So it's,
December 15th.
December
Winter
15th.
range
really?
for elk.
oh,
Yeah.
it's winter range.
Winter
Yeah,
range
Another,
thingy.
another rule. Another
Anything to keep us out.
frickin', yeah.
You're welcome, Patrick.
You bet, Patrick. Anytime.
Oh,
We like doing this too. So
yep. Well, I got to do all this research anyway. It was more fun sharing it.
what are you looking for, Jeff? The Ross County area in Ohio. Is that glacial deposited gold then, Paul?
Now, Tricky Dicky, he doesn't have any problem
No,
with
he's
winter
got
snows.
nice weather down there.
Oh, yeah.
Probably good time to work on it. Look up these coordinates.
Okay.
All right, I'll write them down, Jeff, and I'll take a look.
Good Lord. Do you see how many decimal places he's got there? That's like to the inch. I mean, 5 decimal places gets you within a couple feet. Wow. Somebody's got something fancy there. Yeah, pretty much Goldstream. Yeah, Trickians, thank you for sending that picture of the baby. You could hear Eva's reaction.
It is a beautiful baby.
The shipping will get really expensive, Tricky. Yep, that's from the Geothermal Solutions. Anyone else? I don't think that's going to work, Goldstream. They may think it's going to work, but I don't think it's going to work. I think they vastly underestimate the complexity of reality. What was that we heard somewhere about somebody wanting to control?
Oh, yeah, the head of Boston Robotics there. The robot dog people says we must micromanage all of nature so that mistakes no longer happen.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's right. We need to take control of nature and
I gotta tell
micromanage.
them about the vegans.
Okay. Eva wants to say something.
I'm coming. So anyway, there I was on the front page of the internet, okay? And some crazy vegan came up with this idea of partnering with Boston Robotics, Boston Dynamics, the people that make the killer robot dogs, covering the robot dogs with laboratory meat and putting them out so that obligate carnivores like lions and tigers can eat the meat. And once the robot dogs have been demeated, they go back to the laboratory to get new laboratory meat on them. This is how they will train carnivores not to be carnivores. And they will save the herbivores who will then starve to death, but they haven't thought that far. And Boston Dynamics, one of their head dudes, literally said that his goal is to get to the point where AI can micromanage nature so mistakes are no longer made. They're all psychos.
Does your camera work at 48 below?
I think you're supposed to heat the water to boiling, basically, and then when you throw it out, it does. I'm not sure. I haven't tried it. Is that not
That's
anywhere near
interesting,
that
Paul.
cold
I'll
here?
have to look that Ohio area up a little bit.
Yeah. Where's
That's-
the hat? It was spontaneous. She didn't have time to get prepared. But yeah, that's the kind of wackos we're dealing with that want to run our
If
lives.
you're not familiar with the robot dogs, look up the robot dog YouTube videos. They come with them without machine guns mounted on them. And they dance better than humans. It's really scary.
Yep. All righty. Any other questions, anybody?
I don't. Camera works.
It just
got
got away from me,
I'm
man.
with you. It's too damn cold. Interesting. All right, Jeff. I'll check it out.
I'll do my best, Mr. Lodak. My major concern is broken bones, because if you're not careful with it, then the combination of solid, smooth dihydrogen monoxide and gravity can be quite dangerous, especially when you live on a second floor with a steep set of steps going downhill. I think I got grit on all of them.
Yeah,
so.
they were all good coming out.
Yeah. Well, part of the problem is the
Roof,
gutter up there.
roof
I need
line.
to wait till it gets a nice dry day up there, warm, and then I go up there and the joints are leaking.
Oh, okay.
So it drips, and that doesn't work too well. Yep. They're working on it, Paul. Okay. Any more questions? Going twice. Thank you, Terry. You have a great new year, too.
Yeah, all of you. Thanks for being here.
I think it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, this could
Happy
be memorable.
New Year.
Could be a memorable year, guys.
Yeah, that's right. Laura's going to see you next year. Good point. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So I will go ahead and shut it down for tonight. Thanks for coming, everybody. And I hope we help some people out here, and if nothing else, at least we entertain some. So I say, you guys happy prospecting, and keep it safe out there.